clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, hello and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours is Jonathan Liss, also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Coming up, after the confirmation that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has been killed after Beirut airstrikes, I'll be asking, do you back Israel? I've got a poll up on X throughout the show asking you that very question. Uri Geller will be live from Tel Aviv with his thoughts and giving us an update from his perspective. Then, in my niggle, as this gaffe haunts Sir Keir Starmer,
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
And we discover yet more discrepancies.
And working from home if we can really will help prevent infections.
I'm asking, are Labour turning out to be as bad as the Tories? Then, in difficult conversations, I'll be speaking to a former Miss England, Rahima Muthamia. Now, she is a survivor from domestic abuse, which takes many forms, and in her case, it was coercive control. She wants to educate people to spot this type of abuse. But before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines at 3 o'clock. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in airstrikes on southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. Now, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of a cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March of 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. In other news, at least 45 people have been killed as Hurricane Helen makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Barristers representing alleged victims of Mohammed Al-Fayed say there are now 60 survivors and they have credible evidence of abuse at Fulham Football Club. The former Harrods and Fulham FC owner is accused of multiple sexual assaults after a BBC investigation was published last week. One of the alleged victims spoke exclusively to Patrick Christie's on GBNews last night.
He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
Now, the King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who have been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Meanwhile, the King has also been leading tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith after she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many for her great talent. She leaves 2 sons and 5 loving grandchildren who were devastated by the loss of their extraordinary mother and grandmother. Just Stop Oil activists have targeted Van Gogh's sunflower painting again. 3 climate activists targeted the artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. And finally, 6 rare sea turtles have been rescued and returned to their natural habitat thanks to the Royal Navy. The mission was part of a link-up with 2 marine life organisations to deliver half a dozen loggerhead turtles to warmer waters after the creatures were washed up on UK shores and nurtured back to health. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, coming up on the show, we'll get all the reaction to the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah by Israeli forces and what it means to be in the Middle East and what it means to them now. Are we at the brink of another world war? Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you back Israel? Also coming up this hour, royal biographer Angela Levin will give us the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, Prince Harry goes solo, poor him. And then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are you still interested in Boris Johnson? Remember to tweet me, send me your comments, post your thoughts, gbnews.com/yoursay. So, of course, the lead story today, Hezbollah have confirmed that their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed by the Israeli Defense Forces in airstrikes in Beirut last night. Israel launched targeted attacks on the Lebanese capital throughout yesterday, killing 6 and wounding 91. Now, this is a major provocation to Hezbollah's backers, Iran, who have pledged to support resistance against Israel's wicked regime. Those are their words. But is this the start of all-out war in the Middle East? Well, joining me now is former NATO commander and former Ministry of Defence Director, General Chris Parry. Chris, thank you very much for joining me. A lot of people would say that this is some sort of major escalation. What is your view on this particular move in the conflict?
Well, Nana, I remember we spoke about 2 months ago, and I said to you that it was entirely logical that Israel would have to go after Hezbollah once they got engaged in Gaza, and this has proved the case. And what has happened is that Israel has taken preemptive action against Hezbollah, who since the 8th of October last year have been attacking Israel from the north. And I think it's almost inevitable that they would take some action. What they've done is taken the minimum action they can, and that's to decapitate the head of Hezbollah and quite a lot of his top operatives, with the minimum of collateral damage. So I think the dangers of escalation, quite frankly, are quite low.
A lot of people were saying that the pager attack was, indiscriminate. I mean, I would argue that it was discriminate, specifically for those carrying pagers who were specifically operatives for Hezbollah. But what's your view on that as well? Do you feel that that is an escalation?
No, not at all. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that Hezbollah has been raining missiles, drones, and conducting sort of targeted attacks on the ground against Israel for the past, the past 8 months. Long that since the 8th of October. We also have to bear in mind that 80,000 Israelis have had to evacuate northern Israel and live somewhere else while this has been going on. And at some stage, Israel was going to have to confront Hezbollah because of all the threats that were coming. We have to bear in mind, Nana, you know this, that Hezbollah is an armed mafia organization. They oppress the local Lebanese people, both Christians and Muslims. They run a huge international drugs organization, and they're armed to the teeth. And if that wasn't bad enough, they're also the main agents for Iran in the region. So Israel has struck a blow for all of us in the free world who think that this sort of thing shouldn't happen.
Because there does seem to be, there is a slight narrative and undertone that, Israel, they're not following international law or they're breaching. There are those who are saying this. But I would argue that seems the reasonable thing to do is to try and attack those who are in command of the organisation, and if they are shielding themselves behind the population and civilians, then I'm afraid that's the way it goes. I'm wondering now then, what do you feel will be the next move in your mind, Chris?
Well, I think that Iran right now isn't looking for a war with Israel. It can't really take Israel on. Israel's not looking for a war with Iran. And I think you'll find that there'll be very rapid moves to find out where the common ground is. Israel's made the point, if you misbehave, we're going to attack you. And as you say, they've taken the minimum action they can to actually deal with the threat. They've still got a job to do in Gaza. And frankly, if I were the Houthi leadership right now, I'd be thinking about booking my holidays to Qatar or somewhere else because they've done 2 out of 3 of their main enemies. I should think number 3 is probably on their list as well.
What would you say that watching Israel actually should be a chilling warning to us here in this country at our lack of preparedness for any sort of assault of any kind, and the actual fact that the IDF seem incredibly organised and united behind their leader?
It's a democracy, Nana, just like ours is, and the IDF will do what its political masters need it to do. And I think we have to understand, since the 7th of October last year, Israel's been constantly under siege. I mean, we see the Houthis, we see Hezbollah, we see Hamas, but actually Israel's fighting on 7 fronts at the moment, if you include Syria, Iraq, Iran as well. And so this is a country that actually is fighting for its life. And those of us in the UK don't seem to appreciate that. It's a tiny country. It doesn't have strategic depth. It always has to be vigilant. And when it's threatened, it has to hit very hard indeed. And, one of the things I've learned over my career is you don't mess with the Israelis. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, it would seem that way, and most impressive for such a small piece of land, as you say, but they are fighting for their lives. Again, though, I put it to you that this country, having seen the way they're fighting and the way they are protected, they have the Iron Dome, which protects them from localised missile attack and things like that. Again, do you think perhaps we need to be looking at our own security very carefully, because we are nowhere near as organised as Israel. We are nowhere nearly as prepared for anything.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're part of the NATO alliance, of course, so we've got a large number of other partners who can help us. We've got our nuclear deterrent, and I keep saying to people on broadcast media and online, our nuclear deterrent, it gives us the ultimate guarantee of our security, and it's actually cheaper per head than house insurance is. So, we've got a really good system. But you're absolutely right. Our conventional forces are in no way fitted to confront the sort of threats we face today. And that's everything from armed terrorist groups that have military capability all the way through to these totalitarian powers like China, Russia, and Iran itself, of course, who would do us harm if they could.
Yeah, but as you said, the nuclear deterrent is a last resort. So it's a weapon of last resort. You would want to use the other things first to make sure that you never really had to use that deterrent. It doesn't stop people from invading or doing things, as we can see, that you could still be invaded. And also, as we saw with Vladimir Putin as well, it's almost as though he is sort of tempting NATO to see if NATO will actually respond. Because if anything did happen, would NATO really respond? That's the question. Even though you say we're part of it, would they respond, though? They wouldn't want to escalate things. They've been very tentative.
No. The minute Russia stepped across the border 1 metre, NATO would respond. Otherwise, NATO doesn't have a future. Every single member of NATO has to believe that it would be protected against an external threat. And, here in the UK, we've got to be very careful with the defence review that's coming out that we make the right choices. I'm of the belief that actually Europe can look after itself. Let the Poles and the Germans deal with all the Panzer stuff. We've got the best tank trap in Europe, and we need to concentrate on very high capability weapon systems and personnel that can deliver a very, very sharp punch to anybody that comes near us.
All right, Chris Parry, thank you very much. He's the former NATO commander and former Ministry of Defence Director General, Chris Parry. Right, now today in London, a protest and counter-protest planned are ongoing. The anti-government group Unite the Kingdom, a meeting to campaign on issues such as prioritising Brits and stopping the boats. Now, they have been met with the group Stand Up to Racism, who are there for the counter-protest with signs such as refugees welcome and stop the far right. Let's cross over live and speak to GBNews reporter Jack Carlson, who is at these protests. Jack. Right, Jack, so it seems a bit odd, because Unite the Kingdom I don't think is a particularly racist message, and stopping the boats I don't think is a particularly racist thing to say. But talk me through what you're seeing there and what is happening at your protest, at the protest.
Well, what's happened now, we've had a very peaceful dispersal from the Metropolitan Police of both those that Stand Up to Racism protest and this Unite the Kingdom protest that were both organised here in Trafalgar Square today. The Stand Up to Racism protest started around 12 p.m. That's an hour before any of the protesters that were here for the Unite the Kingdom movement turned up to make their own voices clear on about the issues that are important to them. By their own estimation, Stand Up to Racism estimate there are around 300 of their members here today. They said, amongst other things in their speeches that were delivered here at Trafalgar Square today, that we must mobilise against racism and fascism in workplaces, schools and communities. One of the speakers said, "I'm a supporter of women, but not fascist women," and other such things. Chants of Nazis off our streets, fascists off our streets. There was a Stop Tommy Robinson banner as well laid out upon part of Trafalgar Square here. And then around 1 o'clock, when the Unite the Kingdom protesters, only about 20 or so of them that turned up today, but one gentleman who was singing Rule Britannia on the steps of Trafalgar Square here with his England flag in both of his hands. One of the counter-protesters actually ran up from behind him and tried to snatch that England flag off him. That caused a bit of a situation with the Metropolitan Police, who were able to take him out of that situation. He wasn't arrested, he was let go, but the protester that was holding that England flag said that it did break the two sticks that the flag was held to. And then they stood here. Many of the Unite the Kingdom protesters stood here with tape over their mouths. They felt like that was a more powerful message to bring today, holding placards such as Stop Two-Tier Policing, Stop a Two-Tier Justice System, Stop Illegal Immigration. Now, Claire Austin, who is the founder of Unite the Kingdom, spoke to us earlier on. Here's what she told us.
Right to say, look, we're not the far-right folks that you're portraying us to be. We're just mums, we're sisters, we're aunts. You know, we're just here because we're concerned. We're concerned that the media, not yous, because we love GB News, but the other media and the government are just trying to turn everything against us. You know, we're here trying to show that we are concerned about genuine concerns, and we're not that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you can hear very much the message that Claire was trying to bring across as to why they felt like they had to come out and protest here today. They are very much an independent movement. They are independent of more of a wider movement that Tommy Robinson is involved in, but also as well their concerns that they've put forward, particularly around immigration, as you heard, that they are concerned about the levels of illegal immigration in this country. Now, speaking at the Labour Party conference just in this last week, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has said that they don't want the violence and disorder that we've seen on the streets across the country over the past few months silence a serious debate on immigration. That's something that the Home Secretary says has been missing for too long amid the chaos, gimmicks and damaging what she calls a ramped-up rhetoric from certain protests and certain other political parties. But as I was mentioning, a very largely peaceful protest here today. A lot of shouting, a lot of noise from both sides. But all have been dispersed perfectly by the Metropolitan Police.
Carson, thank you very much. Right, well, just coming up to 20 minutes after 3 o'clock, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up at 3:40, royal biographer Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you back Israel? This is GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Strictly starts tomorrow. There's been a bit of controversy around this year's show. What are your thoughts on that? You've been defending Giovanni. What's your thoughts on all of this year's show and the build-up to it?
Oh, I think it will be as wonderful as it's always been. You know, it's an uplifting show, isn't it? It's got the glamour, everything. There's nothing to make you sad in it. And, you know, I had the most amazing time. And Giovanni was my partner. And it's still, you know, a life-changing experience. And at that time in my life as well, it was a year after Paul, my late husband, had died. You know, it was a tough, tough time. And it just totally brought me out of all my grief. And everyone on the programme is just so lovely. It's like a big family. And my experience of Giovanni, I know other people have said they've had a different experience, but mine was he really looked after me in my grief.
I remember, Debbie, at the time you spoke so movingly about how dance was like therapy for you. It helped to bring your Shazam back. It got you back on track. But I got to ask you at all about the investigation that's being carried out in Giovanni. Do you think that can be properly conducted? And have you been approached to give any evidence in that?
I think it will. I'm sure that, you know, they will do it very thoroughly. And the fact that it's taken quite a long time, you know, is that they're really going into it to make sure they make the right decision at the end of it. And I think lots of people will be invited to give their experience of Strictly. So I just hope at the end of the day, you know, I don't want anyone to be bullied. You know, I'm really against all of that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 24 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you back Israel? Now, it's been confirmed that the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, has been killed in Beirut following an airstrike. Now, Israel have vowed to reach anyone who threatens them, but has this latest move put the world on the brink of a potential world war? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you back Israel? Well, joining me now is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. All right, Jonathan Liss, I'm going to start with you. Jonathan, do you back Israel in their efforts in this latest particular mission that they've done with this leader of Hezbollah?
Well, in a word, no.
No, why?
Because you are looking at a vast death toll in Lebanon, entirely innocent civilians caught up. We wouldn't accept that if a country was bombing us. If there was a terrorist hiding or a terrorist cell that was, say, operating in a tower block that was used by residents in London, and a country bombed that tower block to get rid of the terrorist cell, which is a terrible terrorist cell, and everyone can agree that they should have no business doing what they do. That's not up for debate. Hezbollah is a disgusting organisation. That's certainly something I can agree with. But we wouldn't accept the death toll that goes with that. Lebanon has now seen more people being killed in a single day than has happened since the end of the civil war in 1990. And when you see today that entire tower blocks now complete rubble in parts of Beirut and elsewhere in Lebanon, with potentially hundreds of people buried in that rubble, I don't know how anyone could say that that was justified unless they just don't think that those people had lives just as valuable as ours.
OK, so what about the fact that Hezbollah have been bombing Israel since the October the 7th? Repeatedly, constantly. Israel have had to move people from the north, and the only reason that Israel does not look like Gaza or any of those other countries is because it has an Iron Dome, because it is used to constant attack. What would you say to that?
I'd say that a war crime is a war crime no matter who's doing it. You asked me if I backed Israel, and in this particular... And I'm just telling you my answer on that. If we could talk about whether I back Hezbollah, and the answer would also be no. If they're sending rockets over to Israel, obviously I would oppose that as well, and do oppose that. Look, the UK... and other countries are proposing a ceasefire. There has to be a diplomatic solution. There will never be a military solution to this, because even if you were to get rid of Hezbollah, take out the leaders, as Israel has done today, obviously, then it's not just going to say, oh, you know what, we won't have any kind of replacement for Hezbollah. We're all just going to be pro-Israel now and get along well with Israel. That is not going to happen, and Israel knows that as well as anybody. So if Hezbollah goes, or the leadership is taken out, something will fill that void. So you can't bomb an ideology. You can take individuals out, but there is no end to this war that is not diplomatic.
Well, that is exactly what Israel is doing. Lizzie Cundy.
Well, Hezbollah are terrorists. You can't equate them to Israel because they are terrorists. You can't do a deal with terrorists. That's what they are. And the sad fact is there could be actually a ceasefire now, this minute, if Hamas gave us back the hostages and gave, you know...
It's not related to Hamas, it's completely different.
No, but Hezbollah, they're all linked together and supporting each other. And the fact is, Israel has a right to defend themselves. Look, no one wants war. No one wants to see innocent children and families ripped apart like what we've witnessed. But sadly, that's what happens in war. There are consequences to what happened on the 7th of October.
No, Hezbollah was responsible for the 7th of October.
They are all in it together.
No, Hezbollah was not responsible for the 7th of October.
No, the Hamas were, but Hezbollah...
But Hezbollah said that we will continue to fire rockets over unless Israel stops their fight with Gaza. So this is all linked. So Lizzie is right. The only reason they're doing it, and they've said specifically that they will continue to bomb Israel until Israel stop the war with Hamas.
And they've been
Hamas do not want to stop the war.
And they've been continuing to bomb Israel since the 7th of October.
Well, that's obviously true that Hezbollah has been bombing Israel since the 7th of October. And, of course, there was, the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah long predates 7th of October.
Yeah.
Most people will agree that the main hindrance to a ceasefire deal is actually Benjamin Netanyahu. That's what people are saying in Washington.
Well, I think a lot of people might say it's Hamas.
Well,
what about Hamas?
Look, I'm not here to defend Hamas, but I'm saying that Netanyahu does not want a deal that will involve the return of the hostages. He said that quite plainly.
Sorry, hold on. When did he say that he doesn't want a deal that involves returning the hostages? No, I don't recall that.
He hasn't. What? He has been offered a deal. He was offered. Look, they were offered a deal. They were offered a deal actually in the very few days after the 7th of October that would involve a full release of all the hostages. This is on the record. This isn't just me saying that. And he turned it down because one of the war aims of Israel, and you can argue whether it's right or wrong, but it's just a fact, was to take out Hamas, not just to return the hostages. If Hamas literally did offer to return all the hostages and Israel was not happy with that, that is why you have the families of the hostages who are protesting in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem every single week. They hate Netanyahu.
I think you'll find that actually some people do back Netanyahu, so it's not everybody.
Very few of the hostage families.
But I think you will find that actually perhaps it's the difficulty with actually doing a deal with terrorists.
But look, Hezbollah are now in chaos. Their communications have gone down. But what we need now is just to have some cool, sensible heads on, because we are a world at war.
But that's exactly the point.
Yeah,
we need. That's why our government is proposing a ceasefire.
Hezbollah have not stopped bombing Israel. You cannot just be labelling it all the fault of Israel.
Because
you don't like the Israel government for what they've done. Hezbollah have been bombing Israel since the 7th of October, which was the most horrific massacre,
Lizzie,
which we cannot ever forget about.
I said a second ago that I'm not here to defend Hezbollah, and that obviously a ceasefire requires both sides to cease fire. The point, I was asked the question, do I back Israel? And the answer in this particular issue, bombing tower blocks, raising tower blocks to the ground in Beirut with hundreds of civilians taken out, I do not support that. That's the answer.
Well, hang on, there were 91 people who were injured, and there were, I think, a handful who died.
Hundreds of people have been killed in the last week.
No, but we're talking about this specific incident, though, and obviously with this guy, he was killed. It was a direct attack, initially focusing directly on him. That, I think, is a reasonable attack. But then, unfortunately, where your sort of theory falls is that they are hiding behind civilians. So what do you do then?
But a war crime is a war crime.
Yeah, but they're hiding behind civilians.
I just gave you the example.
No, but I'm asking you a question. I know a war crime is a war crime, and whether that is a war crime is negligible. I don't know whether that's actually the case. But when you are hiding behind civilians and you've got all your armaments underneath the tower block whilst you're attacking another country, what do you suggest? Should they just leave them to carry on because they strategically position themselves where civilians are?
Nana, we know...
Who's causing this?
We know that Israel has incredibly well-developed technology, and they can pinpoint exact individuals that they want to take out.
OK, so were you in support? So what about the pages? What about the pages, which specifically took out individuals with the pages?
And members of their family as well. That was a war crime.
Well, most people... All right, so there's literally no way in your mind,
that's not true.
From what you've just said, that you could only take out the terrorists.
There are plenty of ways you could do it. Israel's done it many times. Israel has done it many times. They've taken out individuals. They took out the guy in Iran. They have taken out individuals all over the place.
So
Look, in a war, clearly it's legitimate
what if
to
the
target
one person hides behind civilians? I think it's easy for us
international law is actually quite clear on that point.
Yeah.
That if you are targeting civilians, then that is a war crime.
No. You're not, though, are you?
And what's Hezbollah's response going to be to this for their leader taken out? Are they going to go in full front? Is Iran going to get back them? What is going to happen? Because no one wants a huge war in the Middle East because it will affect us here.
Well, that's why we're saying there has to be a ceasefire.
Yeah, well, why have they continued to keep bombing Israel since October the 7th, that horrific massacre?
The fundamental, the broader picture is that Israel wants to live in security and safety for its people.
They do.
The way to do that is not to wage permanent war with your neighbours. And obviously, war is a two-way street. I'm not defending Hezbollah or Hamas, but I'm saying the only route to peace will be diplomatic.
All right. Well, we would all agree that the proper route to peace should be diplomatic, but I think it's a bit unfair. It sounds to me like you're attributing a lot of the blame for this to Israel.
Of course, I'm attributing a lot of the blame. So not all of the blame, but a lot of it.
But what about Hezbollah for their
terrorists. Can we remember they're terrorists? Jonathan, they're terrorists.
Yes, I said that quite clearly. They're terrorists, Lizzie. I said it quite clearly. But that doesn't mean that they are responsible for everything.
Well, no, nobody's responsible for everything.
But you can't do a deal with the terrorists.
But you can do deals with terrorists. We've seen that plenty of times. The IRA were terrorists. We did a deal with the IRA.
OK, but I think that on this one, when they don't maybe want to have a two-state solution, but they don't really want to do the deal with you...
Israel doesn't want a two-state solution either.
Sorry, hold on a sec. When they don't really want to have that solution with you, then it's quite impossible, isn't it, to do
Israel doesn't want a two-state solution either. The Israeli government does not want a two-state... I do know that. Netanyahu has literally said, I don't want a two-state solution anymore. It's no longer the Israeli government position.
Well, it's no longer, probably because the others won't do it.
That's not true. That's not true. The Palestinians say they want a two-state solution. That's not Hezbollah. The Palestinians...
I haven't heard that.
What they do.
Well, we'll come back on that one to find out whether that's actually true. But you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Plenty more coming up this hour, including my royal roundup with Angela Levin. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. It's 3:33. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in airstrikes on southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. Now, at least 43 people have been killed as Hurricane Helen makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Now, in other news, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of the cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. And finally, the King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who have been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Wow, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. And each Saturday I love to give you a rundown, and who better to do so than royal biographer Angela Levin. Right, so Angela, let's talk about Harry in New York without Meghan, and of course his very gloomy speeches for the charities. This is not the usual Harry we know.
Yes, this is not Harry we know. What's very interesting is why is he there by himself? He can't do anything without Meghan. And I think for the first charities that he was going to, he was incredibly anxious. He was doing this with his hands and kept on altering his tie and really nervous. And actually that shows you that he's actually so, that she's controlling him so much that he doesn't know how to manage. And all of the conversations were very, very negative. You know, this is very sad about this, is very sad about this. We've got to change the world, we've got to change. But actually what he means, I think, is I want to change my world. So you have to work out why has it happened? Was Meghan fed up with him to get rid of him for 10 days? Are they really just going to divide their work? What actually is the reason? And my own feeling is that this is the beginning of the end, because I think once she finds that she's OK on her own, then she's satisfied. I mean, as we see throughout her life, she drops people when she no longer leaves them. And I think that will be what happens around the corner.
Do you think maybe he's kind of woken up a little bit? Because sometimes, men are in this sort of haze of love. We've all done it. The rose-tinted spectacles, then suddenly we take them off and we can see, oh, my gosh, what have I done? Do you think perhaps he's seeing something different? Or do you just think that, actually, it's healthy that they're doing separate things?
Well, it might be healthy.
Really?
That's another thing. They might go their own special ways. But Harry now really needs her all the time. He needs to know whether he should go behind her or in front of her. But I think if he was very popular, he would be very positive with the way he talks about the charities. The thing that we saw that was very popular, I have to keep the man's name, was that when he was doing a Halloween game with Jimmy Fallows, it was a haunted maze, and the two of them had to do it. And there was the original Harry. He was laughing, he was enjoying himself, he was running in. There were all sorts of creatures coming out and shouting, and he was as happy as can be. And I thought, there he is, he's gone back to being a teenager and enjoying himself. And you see the difference between them. You could see it was, I mean, from what I know of Harry, which is quite a lot, is that he changed according to what was going on. It was a silly, scary nonsense, but he absolutely loved it. And then he went.
What does that tell you?
Well, that he actually, yes, but at least there was something there. That, I think, when they say you put one blade of grass and then the rest can bloom, that might help him. I think going around charities where he's worried about the sky and people watching television and the press, he hates all that, so he's very, very negative. Here, it was, I'm fine, I'm OK.
Back to Happy Harry for a short while. Yeah. Let's move on to Catherine, because Princess Kate, she has gone to see the ballet, hasn't she, up in Balmoral for a couple of days?
We really feel that she's getting better now. She went to Sadler's Wells to see the Akran Khan version of Giselle. He's a marvellous creator. So he's done a lot of ballets that were interesting and brilliant. And she said that it was moving and inspiration. She went to a matinee, not to be late and not to be there when the children came home. I mean, she's been on a holiday to Windsor, at Windsor Castle. She did an early years meeting, which I think was marvellous. She sat there very nicely dressed. She looked fine with all the people around her, because this is the thing that she's been mostly keen of. And she went to Balmoral just with William. I expect the children stayed with their grandparents, and they had a very nice week. She went to church, which is very interesting, because William's not interested in going to church, but obviously she is, and maybe because she's not so well yet, that gives her peace and understanding. But I think it's really a sign of hope, and that is terrific.
Yeah, well, you've just got to take one day at a time and just live your life to the full every moment.
Yes.
What about Boris Johnson now? Apparently his attempts to keep Harry and Meghan back in the UK before they left.
He had given what was called a manly pep talk to Harry, which both the Downing Street and Buckingham Palace asked him to do. That's in 2020, before he left. Meghan had gone, but he was asked to do that. And he said it was absolutely hopeless. He wasn't the least bit interested. Neither of them went with AIDS, but they weren't interested in him. And I think tomorrow in the paper we'll discover more. But they just did this as a please follow us, yesterday. So I think that's very interesting that that they were really wanted. They could have had a marvellous time. They could have been given very interesting, very wonderful things that they could have done. But Meghan was determined to go back. I mean, she'd made lots of threats about if he didn't come straight away, they couldn't wait for everything to be sorted neatly. And now, what are they doing? It's very low grade.
It does seem, you know, that there's just not much left for them to do. I mean, what else is there? They can't tell any more nastiness on their family because we know everything.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know why they did all that. I don't know why they thought that would make...
Well, she wanted to be back in America. I think she was very disappointed here. She thought that she would be able to make a modern monarchy and that the Queen would listen to her straight away and make all the changes that she thought was right. But actually, if you change your country, you change a place, and you go to the extraordinary royal family, you can't just start telling them what to do. You have to be there a long time. Any job, you don't go at the top. You go down at the bottom or the middle.
Well, exactly. But then you're still you, anyway. If you go somewhere else, you're still you, so you can't run away from yourself. That's that brilliant song, Bob Marley, you're running and you're running away, but you can't run away from yourself.
That's true.
Angela Levin, always a pleasure. Although in Meghan's defence, I'm sure she would say that she's just trying to live her life and enjoy her life to the best she can, given the circumstances.
Not sure of that.
I think I would just have a little bit more fun. Angela Levin, really good to talk to you. That is royal biographer Angela Levin. That was my royal roundup. Next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are you still interested in Boris Johnson?
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Professor Frank Furedi has long been recognised for his incisive critiques on contemporary cultural and political issues. In his latest book, titled Why the West Must Fight for Its History, he argues that we are currently facing a profound crisis of identity, exacerbated by the growing trend of historical revisionism. And he joins me now. Welcome to GB News. So would you like to set out, as briefly as possible, the argument in your book?
My argument is basically that increasingly cultural conflicts are about the past, rather than simply about what's going on now. And I became aware of the fact that just about every dimension of our past, our legacy, our cultural achievements, is now being rendered toxic by a systematic attempt to contaminate who we are, where we come from. And to me, that's a very dangerous development. And what's also very dangerous is that all of our cultural institutions, the schools, universities, museums, are going along with this. And there's very little resistance to this whole process. And if that continues, then, in a sense, people growing up in today's world will feel a sense of shame about their nation, about where they come from. Britain did many things over the centuries which we shouldn't be proud of. But when you roll the film backwards and you look at the history of this nation, I think that there is a lot to be proud about. And it's not even a question of balancing good and bad. It's simply having an honest understanding that these achievements, from the Magna Carta onwards, are historically important. You cannot have an idea of tolerance without the contribution of someone like John Locke. You know, you cannot have a sense of technological progress without the Industrial Revolution.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Right, before we move on, just some messages have come in. One from Gary Mond, who actually says that, so just watching your show, and Jonathan Liss, he is largely not quite telling the truth, just politely. And nothing has been said about the possibilities now for Lebanon if Hezbollah can be completely destroyed. So that's what he's told me.
Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, you didn't hear that. OK, so Gary Mond, he's the chair of the National Jewish Assembly. He said, just watching your show, and Jonathan Liss, he is largely talking Nothing has been said about the possibilities now for Lebanon if Hezbollah can be completely destroyed.
When did I say anything to...
Well, so he's listening to what you said,
I didn't
so
say
that's...
anything about... I didn't contradict that at all.
OK, well, we'll...
I didn't say anything about what Israel has...
Well, that's what Gary...
Gary's wrong, sorry.
Gary, he says you're wrong. Right, Lizzie Candy. Oh, welcome back to both. Right, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, are you still interested in Boris Johnson? The ex-Prime Minister's memoir is to be published next month, and interesting things are coming out of the woodwork, including claims that he planned to invade the Netherlands during COVID to seize British-developed vaccines. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are you still interested in Boris Johnson? Lizzie Candy, I'm going to come to you first. Are you still interested in Boris Johnson? He's got his book out, Unleashed.
Yes, he is unleashed. And I mean, I am actually, because I do know Boris and I know his father and his family. And he's interesting, he's entertaining. People say he's like Donald Trump on a budget, but I actually enjoy him very, very much. And I can just picture this with Boris, him like on a speedboat, dressed in black, about to go in. I actually called my Dutch relatives today and they were horrified, thinking this could actually happen. But I had to remind them, this is Boris Johnson, and take it with a pinch of salt. It's a bit like James Bond with a bit of Enid Blyton, all rolled in, maybe a little bit of truth. But you know what he's like. He's a little Walter Mitty. But it's fun, and I'd rather read his book than Keir Starmer's, which I see at the pound shop walking past today.
Is this,
yeah, Keir Starmer. It's great if you've got insomnia. It will help you.
I thought he stopped the book. Not the book.
It's still there.
Jonathan Liss.
I'd rather have colonic irrigation every single day for the rest of my life than read a page of Boris Johnson's memoirs unless I'm being paid to, for example, to go on a television programme to talk about it. I have zero interest in Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is a writer of fiction, and I don't think he's a very good writer at that. If I wanted to read fiction, I'd read someone a lot better than him.
All right, well, people have got in touch. Yol says, Nana, is Boris soon to be of this parish, as you hinted? Potentially, I can say no more. Molly says, I'm totally backing Israel. Lebanon has been taken over by a terrorist organisation. They told the Lebanese soldiers to go away. So who is in charge? Stephen says, when commercial flights begin, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page to pay for a one-way ticket to Mars for somebody.
I wonder who that could be for.
Well, there's two people, actually, on the plane. One of them is Matthew Stadlen.
Please say put me on a rocket with Matt Stadlen.
Yes.
Please say do that for both of us.
Very good. Very good, Stephen. Very good. That was Stephen Butler there sending us that message. And
I've just had a funny tweet in saying that someone's going to buy loads of copies of Boris Johnson's book because it's more absorbent than Kleenex.
No, don't give them the money. I'd rather give money to Kleenex.
Right. Robin on Israel says, I hope Israel continue to eradicate terrorists. It wasn't long ago that we had bus bombings in London, murders in most European and American cities. I can think of all from one region and one brand of one version and one religion. That's somebody's view there. But they've not said, obviously, which one that is, and it's down to you to think what you think. Grumpy Grandad said, it's interesting to see how the loony left are viewing Israel. We know they all think alike on everything, so it gives us a rough idea of how Starmer is seeing it. Really?
I don't think Starmer and I agree on very much, to be honest.
Really? You don't agree with Keir Starmer?
I'm much more to the left of Keir Starmer, you know that.
Starmer
is a complete centrist. I wanted Starmer to become Prime Minister. I'm glad he is Prime Minister. I want him to be doing better as Prime Minister. I want Labour to be more radical. That's all I want.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Right, next, my niggle on the Prime Minister, who's facing a tough time, isn't he? I mean, you've seen all the stuff that's been going on. Sausages, sorry. I don't want to laugh because it's not even funny, is it? The actual issue is not funny, but that's just how bad it gets. Stay tuned. That is on the way, but first, let's get an update with your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We love Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. Boo, hiss. No, I'm joking. Coming up, after the confirmation that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has been killed after Beirut airstrikes, I'll be asking, do you back Israel? The poll is up on Twitter throughout the show asking you that question. Then we'll go live to Uri Geller. He's there in Tel Aviv. We'll be finding his thoughts on an update from his perspective. In my niggle, that's on the way next, as this gaffe haunts Sir Keir Starmer.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
And we discover yet more discrepancies.
And working from home if we can really will help prevent infections.
Only you're not working from your home. I'm asking, are Labour turning out to be as bad as the Tories? Then, difficult conversations. I'll be speaking to a former Miss England, Rahima Muthamia. She's a survivor from domestic abuse, which, as you know, takes many forms, and in her case, it was actually coercive control. She wants to educate people to spot this type of abuse. That's on the way, but before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines at 4 o'clock. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in airstrikes on southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. Now, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of a cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. Now, in other news, at least 45 people have been killed as Hurricane Helen makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Now, back in the UK, barristers representing alleged victims of Mohammed Al-Fayed say there are now 60 survivors and they have credible evidence of abuse at Fulham Football Club. The former Harrods and Fulham FC owner is accused of multiple sexual assaults after a BBC investigation was published last week. One of the alleged victims spoke exclusively to Patrick Christie's on GBNews last night.
He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
Now, the King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who've been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Meanwhile, the King has also been leading tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith after she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many for her great talent. She leaves 2 sons and 5 loving grandchildren who are devastated by the loss of their extraordinary mother and grandmother. Just Stop Oil have targeted Van Gogh's sunflower paintings again. 3 climate activists targeted the artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. And finally, 6 rare sea turtles have been rescued and returned to their natural habitat thanks to the Royal Navy. The mission was part of a link-up with 2 marine life organisations to deliver half a dozen loggerhead turtles to warmer waters after the creatures were washed up on UK shores and nurtured back to health. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It just gets worse. Sir Keir Starmer managed to make sausages, out of his own party conference speech.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
I told my 7-year-old son about this. He rolled over on his back in hysterics. Doesn't look good for Sir Keir on the global stage. Then there was that awkward kiss at the end. His wife wearing a borrowed dress rather than one given to her by Labour donor to the front bench, Lord Ali. Although borrowed or given, what's the difference? As if we're going to police whether it was ever returned. Now it transpires Sir Keir Starmer has admitted that Lord Ali gave him £32,000 to pay for clothing, double what was declared for that specific purpose. So, on top of the £16,200, Keir received £10,000 in clothing donations in October last year, and £6,000 in February this year, which he did not declare as clothing, rather as money for his private office. Although, which office that might be, who knows, as this week it was revealed that Keir Starmer used Lord Ali's house to give a COVID message telling us all to stay at home. He even went to the trouble of dressing up the background so it would appear as though he were in his own house. I think you call that subterfuge.
And working from home if we can really will help prevent infections.
He claimed that it was to protect his son, who was doing his exams, from the press and journalists who were apparently hovering around outside his home. Only the timings were wrong, so that didn't make any sense. So after all the pontificating and the trade of abuse that Boris Johnson and the Tories received from the opposition at the time, that many on the Labour, the front benches, had their snouts firmly in the Lord Ali trough. Talk about double standards. And it looks to me that he even tried to disguise it. The question that needs to be asked is what is expected in return for all of this? When I go on a hot date, for example, I'm wined and dined and made to feel like a princess. My date wants something in return. So I struggle to understand why Keir Starmer didn't appear to sort of understand how that looked.
Do you see how it looks to some people that there's one rule for you in terms of being able to claim this stuff that other people don't have access to?
Well, I think that's why the rules are there, to declare it. But look, every day...
Do you get it, though?
Every day...
Do you get how it looks?
If you're putting to me, Beth, that I should have stayed in my Kentish Town home and disrupted my son's GCSEs, that was the right thing to do, then I think you should put that to me.
OK. Well, you're saying that you shouldn't have stayed in the home because you wanted to protect your boy.
I wanted him to be able to do his GCSEs, and any parent would have made the same decision.
The question is, what does Lord Ali get in return? Before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up today for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is stopping the boats racist? Stand Up to Racism seem to think so. Then GP and medical writer Dr Rennie Honderkamp will join me in The Pulse to discuss the death of a woman believed to have undergone a non-surgical Brazilian butt lift and how dangerous they can be. That is on the way in the next hour. As ever, I've got difficult conversations. We'll be discussing domestic abuse. That is on the way. Don't forget, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. 10 minutes after 4 o'clock. Joining me now, former Labour Minister Dennis McShane. Right, Dennis, was I unfair in my niggle with regard to Sir Keir Starmer?
I don't think so, Nana. I will forgive you this one. But I was fascinated to learn today from none other than Michael Gove, taking over the very right-wing Spectator, that David and Samantha Cameron also had free clothes from a sort of secret Tory slush fund. Michael Gove telling us, not the Wicked Guardian, Michael Gove. Or a Tory MP, Sir Lawrence Robertson, who trousered £82,000. But all of it declared, because, of course, the interesting aspect of all of this is everything now has to be declared, so we're finding out. And your question about what does Lord Ali get in return...
Well, what does he get in return?
Well, not a lot. I mean, I remember when, before the 1997 election, this guy is a genius. He came from a one-parent family, immigrant background, and got into TV very early on and made a fortune. Everybody acknowledges he's a genius at it. And before the 1997 election, he decided to give Peter Mandelson use of a car and a chauffeur. So Peter, who was doing extraordinary things for Labour, they could whiz around without worrying about parking. What else he got? He was a Lord quite soon afterwards. I don't quite know what he does get in return.
It seems a bit odd, though, doesn't it? Because I think that a lot of people... Because it feels as though the narrative is, well, as long as I've declared it, then it's OK. It's not really OK, is it? Especially when you're taking winter fuel payments, you're saying that there's a black hole that we're all, that the Labour Party are literally throwing themselves into. But you're talking about a black hole and saying, now this is terrible and how things are going to get worse before they get better. And then you seem to have your snout in the trough to tunes of hundreds of thousands of pounds. They're all at it.
I think it's horrible. I think I may have been on your or one other GBNews programme arguing consistently that we need to have democracy pay for democracy. Now, when politicians run around, whether it's in the old days from trade unions or Boris Johnson trousering 14, not personally, of course, for the party, £14 million from Putin oligarchs, it now is it distorts everything. I mean, dear old Boris, I was just looking at the Dutch press today, his threat to invade them. I mean, he really is making Britain the laughing stock of Europe.
No, his point was that he wanted to take the AstraZeneca vaccines that were rightly ours from a factory that he thought that we should be getting them.
Yeah, well, the headline of De Telegraaf, which is a bit like The Telegraph, very serious conservative paper in Russia's Boris Johnson planned invasion of the Netherlands. He is just the laughing stock of Europe.
I don't know about that, and I think Keir Starmer might have come close to that with all of this that's going on, if people are watching and seeing. I think the issue that people have with this is the utter hypocrisy of the Labour Party. The fact that they were standing pontificating on high about integrity, and everyone was saying Keir Starmer's a man of integrity. Well, he's a very rich man. He's got his own statutory instrument for his pension. He doesn't need the money. He could spend his own money, and people are suffering, and he's taking freebies. And it's not just him. It's literally the entire front bench of the Labour Party. They're all at it.
And at the same time, all members of the Liberal Democrat Party, when they were in government, Tories when they were in government, I agree with you. It's hitting Labour hard. I'm not dissenting one little bit. And I tell you, I'm on an ex-Labour MP's WhatsApp group, and the people who are going absolutely off the wall are all the women retired MPs. Yeah. Because they really sense that. They don't like to be told, you're a woman and somebody's got to give you free clothes in order to be an MP. I mean, this makes a mockery of politics. It is damaging, and I think the consequences will last.
And I also think that the main issue for it as well is the question of my monologue is that what are you getting in return for this? And there has to be some kickback somewhere, even if it's softening the person up for something, or why would you give somebody a gift without needing to give them a gift? There's got to be, and also, won't it affect that person's ability to be completely objective when making a decision about something that you're involved in?
Well, let me confess, as MP for Rotherham, I could walk into the director's box for Rotherham United home games, and I'd see the chief constable there, the leader of the council, maybe the vicar. I mean, that was a normal part of bigwigs of the local community. once I went up as a minister to New Balance, you know, the sports firm up in the Lake District, fabulous place, and I came away with a New Balance T-shirt. I probably still got it. Now, did they get anything in return? I'm not sure.
Oh, come on, Dennis, a T-shirt is hardly the same as like 32 grand's worth of money to buy clothes.
Oh, sure, sure. But unfortunately, my clothes taste is so bad. I mean, I'm challenged by working my way through Primark.
Well, I'm glad you said it. Dennis McShane, thank you very much. Right, it's fast approaching 16 minutes after 4 o'clock. Thank you to Dennis McShane. Now to the big story today. Hezbollah have confirmed their leader Hassan Nasrallah has been killed by the Israeli Defence Force in airstrikes in Beirut last night. Israel launched targeted attacks on the Lebanese capital throughout yesterday, killing 6 and wounding 91. Now, this is a major provocation to Hezbollah's backers, Iran, who have pledged to support resistance against Israel's what they call wicked regime. Is this the start of all-out war in the Middle East? Well, let's go now to Senior Military Intelligence Officer Philip Ingren. Philip, does this feel like the start of something big, or do you feel that this is perfectly reasonable, justified and kind of low level in a sense?
Oh, no, we're certainly going up the ladder of escalation. I don't think it's an inevitable start of a Middle East war. That will depend on how Iran and Hezbollah react to this. But I don't think the Israeli operation to dislocate Hezbollah has finished quite yet.
I want to get your view on the pager attack that Israel used. In your view, was that targeted? I see it as targeted. Some people are saying it's indiscriminate. Where do you sit with that?
Well, we have to recognise the Israelis haven't admitted this yet, but you can't get something more targeted. You know, the Israeli intelligence will have identified that how the senior Hezbollah leaders communicate with each other. They've set the conditions for them to abandon their smartphones, and they wanted to replace something. They will have known that they wanted to replace those smartphones with pagers, and they will have identified that it's only the senior leadership that will have those pagers, and they were adjusted in such a way that the explosive that was within the pagers was so small that it would have an immediate impact on the individual carrying it and potentially those that are within a few feet of the individual, but it's an awful lot safer than dropping a 500-pound bomb in an apartment to kill one person, which the Israelis, under international law, would have been legitimately allowed to do. So it was an exceptionally well-targeted attack.
Yeah, and this particular attack, as has been reported, has killed one of the leaders, or the main leader of Hezbollah. In terms of what Israel should do next, what would you say, Philip?
Well, it's not just killed, you know, the leader of Hezbollah. It's also killed the deputy commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, the Quds Force, Abbas Nilforsan, who's in there, who was in liaising with them. He is the link to Iran. I think what the Israelis are going to do now is continue to move into or have the potential to move into southern Lebanon, to move out any Hezbollah forces that are occupying an area where they can rocket Israel, as they have done every day since the 8th of October last year, displacing 60,000 Israelis and killing tens of Israeli women and children in the process. Now, this area is something that is subject to United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, signed in and delivered in 2006, ordering the area to be demilitarized apart from the UN forces who are based in there. It also called for Hezbollah to be disbanded. That hasn't happened, and Hezbollah have used that area to launch attacks against Israel continuously. And the Israelis, I think, have every right to go in and destroy Hezbollah. Remember, Hezbollah may have individuals in the Lebanese government, but they do not represent Lebanon, and the Hezbollah military forces are not the Lebanese military forces. So they're destabilizing Lebanon as much as they're trying to destabilize the region, because they're under Iranian control.
And it does seem that, and I have noticed listening to some of the other radio shows and other radio reports, that a lot of the people in Lebanon don't want this, and they're not really fans of Hezbollah anyway. So it does feel as though... Sorry, go on, Philip.
I was going to say, you're 100% right. Hezbollah are not just this militaristic organization. They're also one of the biggest organized crime gangs in the area. And you know what organized crime gangs are like at terrorizing the local population? They are one of the biggest money laundering gangs in the Middle East. They're one of the biggest drug supply gangs in the Middle East. And they're one of the biggest people trafficking gangs, trafficking women and children for sex across the Middle East. They're not a nice bunch of people.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And it's odd, though, that a lot of people don't seem to be able to get their head around just how dangerous these people are. Thank you very much, Philip. That is Philip Ingren. He's a former senior military intelligence officer. Those are his thoughts. What are yours? gbnews.com/yours. Say, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour just as bad as the Tories?
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
One of the most eminent constitutional experts, Sir Vernon Bogdaner, has published his latest book, Making the Weather, 6 Politicians That Changed Modern Britain, covering 3 eminent figures on the left, Nye Bevan, Roy Jenkins and Tony Benn, as well as 3 on the right, Enoch Powell, Keith Joseph and Nigel Farage. We began by discussing the latter, the newly elected Member of Parliament for Clacton and leader of the Reform Party. I started by asking him how Nigel Farage has had such a fundamental effect on British politics.
Well, it's not difficult to underline Nigel Farage's effect. He's partly, perhaps largely, responsible for Brexit, which, whether one's in favour of it or not, is the most consequential foreign policy decision we've made since the war. And he's also, I think, largely responsible for destroying 3 Conservative Prime Ministers, David Cameron, Theresa May and, more recently, Rishi Sunak. How's he done it? I think the answer's quite simple. He's a brilliant communicator. And that, in a way, is the first task of a politician, to be a communicator. The first task of an academic is to teach and write books. The first task of a politician is to be able to communicate. And sad to say, neither Keir Starmer nor Rishi Sunak, whatever their other virtues, are very good communicators. So I think that's the reason for his success.
And Nigel's always been very good at communicating a complex issue through a simple message. And that has resonated with the people that he's trying to influence.
Absolutely. He speaks to people with language they can understand. He doesn't use language they can't understand, like missions or strategic aims or management speak, which has really taken over both of the major parties, I think, frankly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's all right, fair enough, you're here now. Nana Nicey here. Now, as the Conservative Party conference kicks off tomorrow, don't miss that, because Camilla Tominey's show is 9:30 Sunday morning, where Tom Harwood will be joined by all the Tory leadership candidates. So stay tuned for that 9:30 Sunday morning on GB News. That is tomorrow. But stay tuned for that. But that's why I'm asking, listen, this lot, they're chatting away, but are they as bad? Are they as bad, the Labour, as bad as the Tory party? Because we saw what happened with the Tory party. They literally disintegrated before our very eyes. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, well, not literally, obviously, that'd be a bit odd. People will take that literally. Are Labour just as bad as the Tories? Amid the ongoing donations round with Labour, it's now emerged the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, received an additional £16,000 worth of clothes from a Labour peer, Lord Ali. It's not that he didn't disclose it, it's just that it was attributed to something else. So it was a kind of thing that he's not being 100% clear as to what that money's being used for. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour just as bad as the Tories? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also political commentator Jonathan Liss. I'll start with you, Lizzie Cundy.
They're worse.
No.
They are worse, let me tell you. And I found out just now that Keir Starmer's speech was actually written by a guy called Frankfurter.
Frankfurter? Are you joking?
So,
is that a joke?
No, it's a joke. Now, look.
Sorry.
I mean, the gifts that just keep on coming. I don't think the Tories ever had such, a scandalous things as this. No, let me finish.
I am letting you
because we have Wardrobe Gate. We have Lady Starmer Gate, Spectacle Gate, the Arsenal Box Gate. Now we've got the multi-pound, beautiful, luxuriant apartment gate. And he let his son there, by the way, to do his GCSEs. How kind of him. Well, he's doing a big tax raid on the private schools. I mean, it's just one thing after the other, isn't it? And the thing is, it's the double standards, because they just, pointed their finger and screamed at Boris Johnson like mad, pretending they were the do-gooders. And really, they're actually not the same, they're worse,
well,
Jonathan.
It's been, 10, 11, 12 weeks. It's not been very long at all.
£100,000 of free gifts.
And all of this now unfolding.
I don't think that you could say that what's happened is worse than, say, Partygate or any of the multiple things that happened under the Conservatives. That's not to say that there is no case to answer here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what's happened here in this particular issue is you've got lots of things that are being put into a big pile, and the media is finding new things and adding them to the pile. And some of those things will be worthy of criticism and worthy of scrutiny, and some of them are kind of non-stories. I happen to think that, for example, the one about him doing the broadcast in December 2021 from Lord Ali's house, that's a non-story. Who cares? There was no lockdown. There was no lockdown happening right then.
There might not have been, but he was telling people to stay at home in their houses, and he had made it look as though it was his own house. I mean, come on. There's a little bit of what I feel a level of deception there, because you've put pictures of your family around you.
That's a lie, Jonathan. You've got pictures of his son behind him. He just dressed it up as his own.
TV broadcasts often happen from TV studios or sets or things that, when I go on Jeremy Vine and people see a picture of, sort of Big Ben behind us, that's not actually Big Ben, that's just a picture.
But he doesn't have to do that. Even if he's in an office, and he doesn't need to show that he's somewhere where his pictures of his family are, because the pictures of his family weren't there. So he specifically brought those things in there to give an impression of something.
There might be any number of reasons why his house wasn't appropriate for a broadcast.
OK, but give me a reason why you'd put a picture of your son behind you in a room that wasn't your own when you're broadcasting live. If you've got another reason.
In the same way that when Nigella does her shows, she has a set that she replicates her own kitchen at home. There are all kinds of... it's not a scandal, Nana. It's not a scandal.
So you think that that's just a replication of a set in his office, even though he's pretending to be in an office, which is why he's got a picture of his son then? That's perfectly reasonable.
I don't actually know. I don't know Starmer very well. I met him twice. I don't know him. And I don't know why he did it from Lord Ali's house, but whatever the reason was, it's not a big story. What you've got here...
It's totally wrong. It's a huge story. It's a worry.
Sorry, let Jonathan finish. I want to hear what you have to say.
I think that there is an issue about donations and about gifts, and that issue is cross-political. We had it plenty of times with the Conservatives, and more Conservative MPs took money in the last year than Labour MPs, and they took more money than Labour did.
Although Keir Starmer has taken the most so far
of
all of them.
Of MPs, and I think that there is an argument. With all these debates, it's very difficult, actually, when you are sort of on the side of saying, actually, it's not so bad in some ways, because it's much easier to say, you're plague on all your houses type thing. It's actually quite difficult to be a person saying, this isn't as terrible as you think it is, because politicians do get donations, they do get gifts. The balance is where you strike it, and I think they've gone on the wrong side of that, and they haven't handled it. The communication
Well, also, let's just come back to the fact that he did not declare it as clothing, so he declared it as something else. Now, that is not...
So what you've
that?
had here is they declared it as something for the office, or I think,
that's
because
right,
there was no specific category of clothing in the declaration.
Well, other things have been declared as clothing.
Right. Okay. Fine. But there's no. I don't think there's like a specific box you tick for that. You can specify it if you want to.
But other things have been declared as clothing.
Fine.
So clothing's been declared as clothing.
Right. So what's happened is they declared it, and then they looked again and said, is this as transparent or as explicit as it could have been? They said no, so they've redeclared it.
After they've been found out.
I'm not sure it's after they've been found out. I don't know.
It is after, because we've only just discovered this.
Well, they discovered it because they redeclared it themselves. I don't know if the journalists
they had to. They had to, because it wasn't true what they put it down as.
I think that there are different interpretations of what counts as an office cost, and clearly it wasn't as explicit as it might have been, and so they've declared it, and I'm glad they have. I think that the thing with this, provided you have full transparency, so journalists can go over these records and ask questions.
But it wasn't, was it?
Well, it has been.
Well, now it is. Now they have to be.
Well, I think that if they're going to be more transparent than before, then I welcome that.
But what you're missing the point. It's so hypocritical, because he's there saying he's this, we know, this man for the working class. He's taken from our pensioners, cutting their winter fuel allowance. All of this. Can you not just see how horrific it looks? And all coming from this Lord Ali, even sitting in Lord Ali's home, pretending that it's his. Can you not see how wrong this is, Jonathan, and how it looks? And look what he's doing. Look what he's doing to our pensioners. And he's favouring the unions over them, cutting the winter fuel allowance. Then you can see how people are now looking at Labour, thinking, we don't trust them. He's a liar. He's pretending. And he's actually dropped. He's now dropped 45 points. He's actually minus in the ratings of 26. He's going below Rishi. That's what people think of your government that you support.
Well, I don't think there's any evidence that he's lied. I don't think that you could call him a liar.
He pretended that was his place. He had pictures of his son behind. Jonathan, did you not see it?
I think
it's a joke.
Television is... There's a lot of artifice in television, Lizzie. You know that perfectly well. People go on TV, and it's not always, their actual front room.
It was his house.
I don't think that's the scandal of the century. I really don't.
What's going on? And do you not think, Lord Ali, what does he want in return?
That's a different question. I've seen no evidence. What's so funny, Nana? I've seen no evidence.
The pair of you, it's brilliant. Carry on.
I've seen no evidence that there is anything untoward in what Lord Ali... I'm sorry. There are questions about donations.
Let me talk. He actually knew he was in Lord Ali's house. He thought, I've got to pretend this is my own home. He whipped out some pictures of his son from school, whatever, and put them in the background. That is a lie. He tried to fool the British public.
I don't think this is Watergate, I have to say.
It's not Watergate, is it? It's, what do we call it? Lord Allygate. Lord Allygate. It's Allygate.
I've seen... Very good.
Allygate.
He
was in Ali Palace. Ali Palace, get it?
Allygate.
Are we finished here, or do we have some more time?
I don't think we've got time. We need to go to the news, frankly. But I could listen to those two all day. Lizzie Cundit, also Jonathan Liss. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, The Pulse. Dr. Rennie Honderkamp will be here to discuss the dangers of Brazilian butt lifts. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. It's 4:32. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines on GB News. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in an airstrike on southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have now been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. In other news, at least 43 people have been killed as Hurricane Helen makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Back in the UK, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of a cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. The King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who have been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, Britain. Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK. From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday. We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, a woman believed to have died after undergoing a non-surgical Brazilian butt lift. Now, BBL is the treatment designed to make your buttocks bigger. Why you would want to do that, I don't know. More rounded or lifted, as some want. Now, it can be offered as a surgical or non-surgical procedure. However, 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter following the death of a woman believed to have undergone a non-surgical Brazilian butt lift in this country. So I'm going to speak to GP and medical writer Dr. René Honnekamp about about the Brazilian butt lift. Now, Renee, what is it and how does it work? Because they're calling it non-surgical. They're injecting something. How can that be non-surgical?
So when we're just injecting things like fillers or fat that's transferred from somewhere else in the body into an area to enhance it, we call that non-surgical. Surgical means you cut the skin, you open it up, you move muscles around. So that's why it's called non-surgical, but it is still invasive to a degree because it involves needles. The problem with Well, there are two problems with this. The first problem is that the filler market and anything that involves products outside of Botox is completely non-regulated. And more than 10 years ago, we had the Keogh report that said you've got more protection, consumer protection, is if you buy a biro than have a filler injected into you. So the people doing it don't have to be trained, don't have to be insured, don't have to be CQC registered. So you've got cowboys doing it in their living room at the side of their house. And the place where this woman had it done was like a shed to the side of a house that was set up as an aesthetics clinic. And this procedure in itself is probably the riskiest that there is. So there's death rates for this procedure of between about 1 in 2,300 and 1 in 6,000. That's massively high for a beautician, beauty product, as it were, to happen. So what happens that kills people in this is normally a fat embolism. So fat is injected deeper than it should be. It goes into a muscle and then it spreads into the bloodstream. And once it spreads into the bloodstream, it can go to every single organ, or it can get into your pulmonary system, and it can actually cause a PE, so a pulmonary embolism. And you die. You die instantly if you get a pulmonary embolism in the lung. It's a fatal incident. Now, there's 28 people, young people from the UK, who have gone to Turkey for this procedure, have died. 28. And now we've got this woman, and I think there's about 4 more in the UK that have died. And I'd love to see the regulations around what this person was qualified as. I once had a clinic where I did fillers. I didn't do this procedure. I went on about 100 different courses, Nana. I'm not exaggerating. I was fully insured. I kept myself up to date. I couldn't order my filler from my pharmacist because they were that ethical that you still had to be a prescriber to order them. But you don't have to be, and there are places you can get them. So those are the problems with this. And it's so sad. This was a mother of, what, 5
children, yeah.
5 children in her 30s who felt so that she needed to change the shape of her body, that she went to someone who was probably cheaper than a recognised surgeon, and she's died. Those 5 children are now motherless.
And, I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible story. I don't know why anyone would want to do this procedure, because even if you do get it done successfully, aren't there issues with it? You've got filler in your behind.
So you can get migration, so the filler moves somewhere else, so then it gets lumpy. You can get infection, which can lead to sepsis. You know, you can get what we call biofilm around that infection, so it's almost untreatable because antibiotics can't get to it. The complications are high and they're risky. I mean, the complications of filler can also involve infection and biofilms and migration, but you go somewhere, you know, where you can at least know that the person who's doing it is going to be as safe as possible. We need some regulation in this market. So you can't administer Botox if you haven't got a medical licence and you prescribe it. There are some people who inject it and they get other people to do the prescribing. That is frowned upon by the GMC and the Nursing Council. It does happen. But Botox is not dangerous like fillers are. Fillers can potentially kill you.
Really? So why is Botox sort of safer? What is it about Botox that makes it safer?
So Botox does paralyse muscle. It does what it says on the tin. So the worst thing that can happen if somebody not qualified puts it into the wrong place or accidentally puts it in the wrong place, you can get a droopy eyelid or your eyelid can close, but it always wears off. So the side effects don't last for more than 3 months. So it's not going to kill you. Botox is not going to kill you. And we use Botox...
Unless it's injected somewhere wrong.
Very
like in your vein or somewhere like that.
No, it's not going to happen, yeah. It's used in the NHS on newborn babies through to the elderly every day. It's one of the safest drugs on the market. You do need someone who knows where the muscles are and where to put it. But fillers are not so safe because they can move, because they can cause embolisms. So it needs to be regulated. The government needs to step up. Instead of concentrating on people smoking outside, why don't they step up and regulate the filler market?
What would you say to anyone who's contemplating having a BBL?
OK, look, I'm not going to judge whether people should or shouldn't have this, because I wouldn't want it, nor would you, but people want different things. I wouldn't want big lips, but some people do. I would say go to an accredited surgeon, a plastic surgeon who's quality. There are regulations around this. You know, you can go to the British Association of Plastic Surgeons, you know, which is called BAPS, and get somebody who you know you're at least in the safest hands that you could possibly be.
Renee Hondekamp, thank you very much. Are you back on the Saturday 5?
I'm on Saturday 5 tonight. We've got a great show. We're talking about Labour, obviously, two-tier Kia. I've got a great story about a young man being forcibly vaccinated later. So there's lots to talk about, so don't miss us.
Saturday 5, that's 6
Stay tuned.
With Renee Hondekamp and the others. The others.
The others.
Renee, thank you very much for joining us. That is Dr. Renee Hondekamp. She's a GP and a medical writer. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up next in my Great British Debate, I'm asking, is stopping the boats racist?
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I agree that sometimes a child does need that little break for mental space. If your child's not as academic as other children, school lessons can be quite overwhelming. I went into a maths lesson, actually, and watched the other day, and it was so... I didn't understand it, so I don't know how they cope. So I think that it's not bad to let your child have a lazy day once in a blue moon. I'm not saying have lazy days here, there and everywhere, but it can be good to mental rest and stress relief, and it can get their brains recharged, ready for the next day. Because I've had calls from schools before where my daughter's been very overwhelmed and played up at school. So I've even said to the teachers, you know, I'm going to give you a break tomorrow. I'm going to have her off, recharge her little brain, and then I'll send her back in and she'll have a much better day learning. So that's my view on it.
But shouldn't we be teaching children perseverance, that you have to keep going even when you don't feel like it?
Yes, I agree with that, but you can do that at home. I mean, in a work environment, it's different because you choose to do that job. But if you're in a school environment, there's subjects there that children aren't necessarily interested in, and it can be a little bit boring for them with the subjects they don't want to learn. But I think that it's OK to let them have a lazy day off.
OK.
Just one in a blue moon. I'm not saying take lots, but if my child's worked really hard and they've done weeks and weeks of education, they've done well, their brain's a little bit overwhelmed, then I say have a little rest day, recharge your batteries and then get back in school the next day where you'll be learning more rather than playing up and being stressed.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
48 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome if you just tuned in. Where have you been? You've missed some good bits, but we are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is stopping the boats racist? Now, the group Unite the Kingdom have held a rally today in central London calling on governments to prioritise Brits and stop the boats. Now, these, in my view, are perfectly reasonable slogans to be asking of the government that represents us. But Stand Up to Racism were also at the event as a counter-protest. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is stopping the boats racist? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss, is calling for stopping the boats. Is that racist?
Now, I don't know exactly who this group is. I know that there was another incident like this in July where this group was threatening to gather and stand up to racism, said this was a far-right organisation. And something can be a group can be far-right based on more than just the slogans. That, you know, using a slogan doesn't necessarily make you far-right, and you can be far-right without using a slogan.
What in your definition is far-right?
Well, in the policies that if you are sort of advocating racist policies, I suppose, if you are calling for the deliberate targeting of specific minority groups, that normally comes under the bracket of being far right.
Stopping the boats?
Look, stopping the look, we can have a conversation about stopping the boats. I think I just need to, if they're having a conversation about whether it's racist, of course, wanting to stop the boats in itself is not racist. People who are getting on the boats want to stop the boats, so it can't possibly be racist. I just don't want to necessarily comment on this particular group because I don't know enough about them and what they want.
Well, because it's obviously stand up to racism, are they counter-protest?
And also, when you're saying prioritise Brits, I think that is often a dog whistle, and people who say prioritise Brits, they don't really mean that. Sometimes
well,
people
I do.
say that.
When I say it, I mean...
Some people might mean it, but I'm saying that a lot of people, when they say prioritise British people, their idea of a British person might be different from my idea of a British person, for example.
Well, I just think people who've paid into this country, who live in this country and who are British, should be first.
That's not... I think that sometimes, I'm not saying if it's this group or not, but sometimes that's very racially coded when they talk about that.
All right, Lizzie Cundy.
Jonathan, the first order of any government is to look after its own people, and today people aren't feeling that they are getting looked after. Obviously, it's not racist, Nana. It's very sad that they've got to... You know, there have been 47 deaths this year alone crossing the boats. You know, it is awful. And under Keir Starmer's watch, there's 11,500 that have crossed. And it's treacherous and it has to stop. And he's saying he's going to smash the gangs. How is he going to smash the gangs exactly?
That's not going well.
But people have every right to be worried, and just because they're worried doesn't make them far right.
Right, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, their opportunity to be on the show, tell us what they really think about the topics we're discussing. Let's go to David Balm in Watford. David, stopping the boats, is it racist?
No. I think what is worse is the fact we have a government that promised to stop all of this going on. They said they stopped the flights for Rwanda. That won't make a difference. It has made no difference. In fact, it's got worse out there. We have a government that's cutting the pensions allowance for fuel. They're pulling money from every which way, yet no one can actually see they're making any difference to this dreadful situation where people feel compelled to come to the UK because, hey, we can look after them. We've got to look after ourselves first and foremost, then we can look after other people. If the country was so rich that we didn't have to cut the pensions fuel allowance, we didn't have them wanting to close private schools down, then yes. But the moment we start arguing about it, we're all deemed racist. You can't stand up to the government without being called a racist, even though we're not. It's got to stop. And if he can't, and now he's talking about following Italy's, oh yes, send them to Albania. Not Rwanda, Albania, or Germany, whatever the Germany are doing. Anything but what the Tories promised beforehand, because anything else doesn't work. We've got to stop them. And it can't snap back here because that's what it is.
OK, David Balm, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. That's David Balm. He's our great British voice. He's there in Watford. Lots of you have been getting in touch, by the way, gbnews.com/your say. Catherine's talking about Brazilian butt lifts. She said, read Brazilian butt lifts, warning to anyone thinking of doing this, don't. I'm with her on that one. Andy M says, GBN and Matt Goodwin, please. Can we have a poll asking, does the public trust Starmer and his whole stinking government? Well, we could do that, actually, in the next hour, if you like. I think we might have a space for that one. And let's see. There's one here from, why is the Ali clothing taking precedent over the fact Ali, the mate of Assad, has to pass Downing Street? There's a lot to say. I couldn't read the rest of that. Yes, so lots of people getting in touch with their thoughts and comments. Lizzie Cundy, final word to you very briefly then.
Well, look, I'm just saying we're only a small country. We're bursting at the seams, and I can understand people who are fed up with the numbers that are coming in, and it's having a big effect on all our infrastructures, our getting a GP appointment from a dentist, everything else.
Jonathan Liss. 15 seconds.
The biggest, the largest proportion of immigration is from migrants, completely legal migration that the government is actually wanting to come in. So I think that it's a distraction for the government to talk about illegal, irregular migration in the boats. There are far bigger problems as well.
Yeah, there are far bigger problems, but can the Labour Party sort that out? That's the question. This is GB News. Coming up in the next hour, Uri Geller will be here to discuss the ongoing situation in the Middle East. First, your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, broadcaster and author Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. Coming up, after the confirmation that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has been killed after Beirut airstrikes, I'll be asking, do you back Israel? There's a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Then Uri Geller will be live from Tel Aviv with his thoughts, and he'll give us an update from his perspective. Coming up as well, difficult conversations. I'll be speaking to a former Miss England, Rahima Muthamia. Now, she is a survivor from domestic abuse, which takes many forms. In her case, it was coercive control. She wants to educate people on how to spot this type of abuse. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in airstrikes on southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have now been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. Now, it's been revealed that Boris Johnson considered raiding a Dutch warehouse over a vaccination row with the EU. At the time, the AstraZeneca vaccine was at the heart of a cross-channel row, with the former Prime Minister claiming the EU was slowing down the pace of the rollout in the UK. According to an extract from his memoir, Mr Johnson convened a meeting of senior military officials back in March 2021 to discuss the plans, which even he admitted were, quote, nuts. Now, barristers representing alleged victims of Mohammed Al-Fayed say there are now 60 survivors and they have credible evidence of abuse at Fulham Football Club. The former Harrods and Fulham FC owner is accused of multiple sexual assaults after a BBC investigation was published last week. One of the alleged victims spoke exclusively to Patrick Christie's on GB News last night.
He had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. It was like a monstrous, I'm going to get what I want from you. I don't care how you feel. And I do think because it was in a public place, so to speak, he would have gone further had he could. I think he was worried somebody might come in or I might have started screaming or something like that. So he made his exit pretty quickly. And I think he would have definitely raped me if he'd had half the chance, 100%.
To the US now, where at least 45 people have been killed as Hurricane Helen makes its way across the southeast of the United States, leaving millions without power. Emergency crews are racing to rescue people trapped in flooded homes after the Category 4 hurricane struck the coast of Florida last night. Back in the UK, Conservative Party leader Rishi Sunak has arrived at the party's conference in Birmingham. He was seen making his way in with his wife, and they were greeted by interim party chairman Richard Fuller. Tory leadership candidate Kemi Badenoch was also seen arriving shortly before. She was greeted by a number of supporters and activists from her campaign as she arrived ahead of the event officially opening tomorrow. The King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who've been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Meanwhile, the King has also been leading tributes for national treasure Dame Maggie Smith after she passed away yesterday at the age of 89. In a statement, the King praised her warmth and wit, while the Prime Minister remarked she was beloved by so many for her great talent. She leaves 2 sons and 5 loving grandchildren who are devastated by the loss of their extraordinary mother and grandmother. And finally, some breaking news in the last half hour. 3 people have been charged with criminal damage after soup was thrown at 2 Van Gogh paintings in the National Gallery. 3 Just Stop Oil activists targeted the artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. Stephen Simpson, Philippa Green and Mary Somerville will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Monday. The National Gallery says the 2 paintings targeted yesterday were removed for examination and were found not to have any damage. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, coming up after the confirmation that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has been killed after Beirut airstrikes, I'll be speaking to Uri Geller to get his thoughts on what's happening in Israel. The interview today, I'll be joined by a domestic abuse survivor, Rahima Muthamia, in my difficult conversations. She was crowned Miss England 2021. As a Londoner and a domestic abuse survivor, she's using her platform to champion awareness of abusive behaviours and, of course, healthy relationships. Then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, were the Just Stop Oil activists right to receive jail time? Just Stop Oil are, of course, at it again. They've targeted a Van Gogh sunflower painting, throwing more soup. 3 climate activists targeted the artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest back in 2022. So what do you think for the Great British Debate this hour? I'm asking, were the Just Stop Oil activists right to receive jail time? And, of course, at the end, I've got my quickfire quiz. I test the panel on some of the stories that caught their eye this week. As ever, send me your thoughts. Post your comments at gbnews.com/yoursay. So to the big story today, Hezbollah have confirmed their leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed by the Israeli Defense Force in airstrikes in Beirut last night. Israel launched targeted attacks to the Lebanese capital throughout yesterday, killing 6 and wounding 91. Now, this is a major provocation to Hezbollah's backers, Iran, who have pledged to support resistance against Israel's what they call wicked regime. Is this the start of all-out war in the Middle East? Well, joining me now, mystifier and performer Uri Geller, to find out what his thoughts are. Uri, thank you for joining me. Good to see you're safe. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Nana. By the way, what's on my mind? Just about an hour ago, a ballistic missile was flying from Yemen to explode in Tel Aviv. Thanks God we shot it down. Now, look, Nana, this morning, like you just said, it was confirmed that we succeeded in killing Hassan Nasrallah. We wiped him off the face of the earth. And you know what I say? Thanks God. Thanks God this evil man, this tyrant, this anti-Semite, this mass murderer is no more. Let me tell your viewers a thing or two about this creature. You might not know this, and it's important to understand. Hassan Nasrallah was a Hitler. He was a Saddam Hussein, and he was a Bin Laden. He called for Israel's destruction, and he tried to achieve it. He also ordered terrorist attacks against Jews for decades, not just in Israel, but also around the world, in Cyprus, in India, in Thailand, in Argentina. And by the way, he killed a lot of Christians, he killed Sunnis. Now, Hassan Nasrallah did not just have blood on his hands, he was soaked in blood from head to toe. Now, under his command, Hezbollah began attacking Israel just one day after the 7th of October attacks. Do you know Hezbollah has fired more than, listen to this, 8,000 rockets, 8,000 rockets since then at Israel. Now, I have to show you this. This is important. If you think it is only Israel which was against him, let me tell you a fact. Most of the people of Lebanon were against him. Hassan Nasrallah brought Lebanon to ruin. And if that is not enough, Nasrallah sent thousands of his fighters to Syria to help Bashar Assad slaughter Syrians in the civil war there. Now, just a few days ago, Nasrallah gave a speech where he threatened Israel again and promised to punish it for the pager attack. Now, I have to show you something. Look at this photograph. This is the moment that Netanyahu says bye-bye to Nasrallah from his New York hotel room. Whether you believe it or not, look at this picture once more. Look, Nana, Israel has other ideas. And last night, we dropped a 2.5-ton bunker-busting bomb on him. And now Nasrallah no longer exists. Israel has cut one of the heads of the snake. Hezbollah is in a disarray, complete disarray. And this sends a message to all of Israel's enemies, including Iran. Yes, Iran. Iran, if you attack us, we will hit back even harder. Look, Nana, we have to, because if we want to go on living in peace, we have no other choice. I love you all from the Holy Land in Israel, sending you lots of positive energy and kisses.
Thank you very much. That's Uri Geller. He's there in Tel Aviv. These were Uri Geller's thoughts. That's how he feels about the war. Of course, we don't want lots of people to die, and there were, I think, 91 others who were injured in that attack. But then, unfortunately, the leader for Hezbollah was in underneath a residential area, so that makes things very difficult. Well, joining me now, my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. I'll come to you, Jonathan Liss, first. So do you feel that we're at the brink of world war, a big world war in the Middle East?
I mean, I certainly hope not. I don't think that this has the makings of a global conflict, and obviously the West will do everything it can to contain it. And that will also involve putting pressure on Israel. You know, I read a report today that Biden is privately furious with Netanyahu about what's happening. He thinks that there is a major escalation happening. And what I find strange about what's happened in Washington is that there's been a kind of sense of hand-wringing from the White House. But actually, the White House has a lot more power than it lets on, because it could, Biden could tell Netanyahu to de-escalate this, because Israel depends on the United States politically, economically, militarily in many ways, and they're not doing that because obviously they obviously want Israel to be secure, and that's fine. But if Israel does, take this, and obviously the other parties are involved as well. If there is an escalation, that becomes everyone's business, not just Israel's business.
Do you genuinely believe that Joe Biden knows what's going on?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I do. I do. And there are people, and there are a lot of people around him as well who know what's going on. But because in America, I think that Netanyahu has humiliated Biden so many times. Biden and Blinken as well, the Secretary of State.
I don't think Biden needs any help with that.
I have to disagree with you. I don't think Biden knows what at all is going on. He doesn't know left from right, sadly. And that has made me go cold listening to Yuri there, knowing that Hezbollah have sent over 8,000 rockets to Israel. And as I said previously, Israel have a right to defend themselves. And we have to remember Hezbollah are terrorists, and sadly there's an endless amount of people that want to fill this deceased leader's shoes. That is the scary thing. And if you don't agree with Hezbollah, they make your life a total misery. They're full of hatred, and Israel have no choice but to defend themselves.
And obviously they want the people in the north to be able to return to their properties. These people have been displaced for, 6 or 8 months now. There's over 60,000 people who've had to move away from northern Israel.
Yeah, and there are also a lot of people in southern Lebanon who've had to flee as well. You know, there's currently a major refugee crisis, and this is a country where a huge proportion of the population are already refugees. You have, I think, over 1 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon, and you also have Palestinians who've been there since 1948. So this is a huge... and we talk about refugees in this country, you know, there's nothing proportionally to Lebanon and Jordan.
But the difference is that they're not being housed in hotels and all that sort of thing. They're fending for themselves and living as one.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not living in good conditions. I think they should be living in better conditions. But the point is that there are people now, hundreds of thousands of people being internally displaced, terrified for their lives, going further north. People in Beirut who have no truck whatsoever with Hezbollah, and who now fear for their lives.
So in a way, Israel are right to then get rid of leaders who create that environment for their people, surely?
Israel is not going to remove, as I said before, you can take out individuals, but the gap will be filled. There's a vacuum, it will be filled. They're not going to, they can't impose a regime change.
But it might teach them a lesson.
But sadly, I spoke to my friend that is from Lebanon, and sadly it's being used as a battlefield. It is so frightening. And as I say, this is a world at war, and we have to now think with calm, sensible heads, because the last thing we want is another war, because it will affect every one of us. Don't think it won't affect us here, because it will.
Well, what did you think that Benjamin Netanyahu should do, though? Did he do the right thing, in your view?
I do think he did the right thing, because he has to defend his country. And as I said, these are terrorists who won't stop and want the death of every Jew. We've heard what they're about. We know what they're about.
But what about Jonathan's point that it creates a vacuum?
I understand what... Look, no one wants war. But we didn't want... And sadly, what happened on the 7th of October, there were consequences, and Israel has to defend themselves. And sadly, behind Hezbollah, we have Iran, and then we have Russia. It's very frightening times. But as I said, calm heads, and we really need to think no one wants a war, and no one wants to see lots of life.
That's exactly the point. That's why, as I said before, that's why we need a ceasefire, and that's why the West, the UK, the EU, the US, need to... bring the parties to the table. You can have.
But as you've heard, what Yuri said, 8,000 rockets have been at Israel from Hezbollah. What, they're just supposed to let it happen and not do anything?
Well, obviously,
they have to do something.
Obviously, the purpose of a ceasefire is that both sides will cease fire. So both sides will stop firing rockets at the other side. The only solution is going to be diplomatic.
What's Hezbollah's response going to be from what's happened? What do you think? Because
right now they're probably not feeling very positively towards Israel. But the purpose of...
But it's their own fault.
Well, it's their own doing.
We need to talk about what happens next. I think everyone agrees that the only solution to this long term will be diplomatic.
Well, I'm afraid I don't think Lamy is helping at all with the situation, which worries me.
Which obviously it should be, then waging permanent war with its neighbours is not going to guarantee.
All right. Jonathan, Leslie Cundy, thank you very much. And David Lamy.
Maybe Lord Ali could buy him some trainers, new ones.
Or some new shoes, perhaps. But listen, stay tuned, loads more still to come. Coming up to 18 minutes after 5 o'clock. My panellists, Leslie Cundy and Jonathan Liss there. Right, next, it's time for Difficult Conversations. And joining me, domestic abuse survivor Rahima Mutamia. She's here to give her story. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
SpaceX has completed its first private spacewalk. What do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? Billionaire Jared Isaacman became the first non-professional astronaut to walk in space this morning. It was live on Britain's newsroom. I didn't know what I was watching. Here's his reaction.
SpaceX, back at home we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
So that was him coming out of his little capsule. He was attached to the capsule by what they call the umbilical, by a cord, and that was obviously the Earth in the background. It does raise the question, though, Tom, doesn't it? Can you justify the expense? We don't know the true figure that cost to get that spacecraft into air and to have this billionaire up there. We don't know, but let's just say it's in the hundreds of millions at least. How do you justify it when we can't get clean water to half the planet?
Just, Bev, to demonstrate that I'm not engaged here in the politics of envy. I mean, this is a private company, SpaceX. Elon Musk is a private individual. He's attracted these fees, if you like, to go up into space. So, absolutely, this is a plutocrat on a joyride in space that's been over the news. I think there's a broader issue here about, instead of joyrides in space, actually we should be solving, as you say, the water challenges, the educational challenges, the malarial challenges in part of this world, and indeed the challenges in our own country with a quadrupling of the number of people that are visiting food banks just in the last 10 years or so. So there are plenty of social problems. If entrepreneurs and billionaires have got money to give away, to throw away, they should be putting them into solving those very human problems on this planet.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's fine, though. There's about 40 minutes left, so you haven't missed the entire thing. But as the Conservative Party conference kicks off tomorrow, do not miss Camilla Tominey, her show at 9:30 on Sunday morning, where Tom Harwood will be joined by all of the Tory leadership candidates, so you don't want to miss that. 9:30, that's tomorrow morning, here on GB News. But now it's time for this week's difficult conversations. Rahima Mathamia. She was crowned Miss England in 2021 and is a Londoner and a domestic abuse survivor who has used her platform to champion awareness of abusive behaviours and, of course, healthy relationships. As a proud ambassador for Solace, a charity supporting domestic abuse survivors, Rahima draws on her own painful experiences to educate young people on the importance of recognising abuse. And beyond her achievements in beauty pageants, Rahima's advocacy has been deeply personal, and her escape from an abusive relationship inspired her to enter the Miss England competition and use her newfound voice to promote awareness of domestic abuse. Well, I'm very pleased to say that Rahima Mathamia joins me now. Rahima, thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm going to have that wig next.
I'll give you all the details. Don't worry about it. Thank you. Blonde, red, black, whatever you want. Well, I think you should.
Actually, your match is so fun.
Twins. Fabulous.
Rahima, really lovely to see you. Really good to talk to you. So can we talk about your story? Because you're beautiful. She's beautiful. She looks good. It's just amazing, right? So people would think that somebody like you would be so confident that they would never be involved in a relationship that would elicit any sort of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
I know in your case it was coercive control. Talk to me about how you found yourself in this place and how it manifested itself.
My gosh, so I think this was an early relationship. I was at university studying for a genetics degree, madly in love, met a man that I thought was my ultimate dream and turned out to really be an absolute nightmare. I think I never really had the voice, the term for what abuse was. We know of domestic violence, but really coercive control, stalking, harassment, emotional abuse. There's so many different forms of abuse, and I didn't know what that was. So I found myself 7 years ago in a relationship for 2 years that really started absolutely beautifully, but after about 6 months, it was just up and down, abuse. You know, there was physical intimidation. Eventually, I got the strength to leave, infidelity, just everything, you name it.
Really?
Left after about 2 years, and then I was stalked and harassed and just told I was not allowed to leave, that essentially I was his. So it was further 2 years of being followed on trains. It was just absolutely horrendous. But it got me to this place where I was able to sort of recognise it for what it was and then do something about it.
It must have been very, very frightening.
Horrendous. Wow. I was about 22, 23, and I didn't really know what this was. You know, the media doesn't really paint the picture of what domestic abuse is, you know, outside of the physical. I've heard of family members in the past, family, friends, people that we know of having gone through abusive relationships, but it's always been physical. And so when it came to the idea of, you know, I'm going through this experience, I can't really put a term and a name to it, what exactly is this? But it happened, and I feel like I've become stronger from it.
So talk to me about the moments that were there that suddenly you started to think, hang on a minute, this doesn't sort of feel right. What kind of things happened? How did it manifest itself?
Yeah, it was definitely the emotional abuse, the highs and the lows. It was really, one moment, it's just love bombing. I don't know if you've heard the term, it's quite popular right now. Lots of love, lots of affection, and then the next minute there's like tension and then violent, angry outbursts. I've been called all names under the sun that I will never repeat on TV.
Please don't.
I will not.
Please
but
don't.
just, it's the ups and the downs and really not having any stability that you really start to notice that there's something wrong here, but you can't put a term to it.
What did that do to you?
Completely messed up my psyche. It's very, very difficult when you can't quite understand. This is someone that's meant to love you. You know, a relationship, you should be stable, peaceful, loving, but the same person that loves you is also the same person that hurts you the most. And so it's that cognitive dissonance that you have between, well, you say you love me, but you also cause me a lot of pain.
Because you can kind of lose your mind there, can't you? Because you're. I mean, I know what love is. I know I have beautiful children, and thankfully that has taught me lots of things, including how to deal with men. Because I had a young boy, and I'd been to a girls' school. I wasn't that, you know. I had this delusion that this is the fantasy with someone as a love and this and then, and then I obviously went out with people and realised, oh, that's a bit of a delusion.
Exactly.
Do you think that your upbringing in a sort of like as all girls' school, do you think that had something to do with your sort of lack of, you know, sort of verbal intimacy with men kind of thing and knowing where the boundaries are?
Do you know what I mean? Actually, I was talking about this the other day. I think I actually have quite an issue with single-sex schools.
Really?
I think it's not healthy in the sense of when you get out into the world, you need to be able to mingle with people from all kinds of backgrounds. Men and women need to have that foundation of how can we interact with each other. I was in secondary school, single-sex from year 7 up until university. So I never really had that interactions outside of the local person around me, my neighbours, for me to understand the dynamics of a male and a female relationship. And so I wouldn't say it contributed entirely, but there could be something to think about as to could have that contributed to sort of like the lack of understanding.
Because it's always good when you're around something.
Definitely.
You learn. You learn being around something. So if it's not there, then you might not understand the nuances and behaviours of men.
Yeah.
So from there, you realised that you were in how did you get out? Because those relationships are often very, very difficult to escape.
Yeah, it took me so long to leave. I was leaving every month, and any time I left, he would turn up at my door and send me flowers and shower me, and then the confusion started again. And so I think it took me, I'd say, about a year to leave completely. From when the moment I sort of realised something was wrong here, it was 12 months later that I went, And it was once I got cheated on multiple times, I thought, I have to have some self-respect.
Why would somebody cheat on you? You're beautiful. What was he looking for? That isn't good enough.
Probably still looking for it. I don't know.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah, well, but it was from that once I finally gathered the strength to realise I've lost my sense of self. I feel like I've lost my mind. I fell into depression. I had anxiety. I had a suicide attempt a few months prior. And at that point, I thought, I cannot stay with you. I have to go.
And thank goodness you did go. You're here now and talking to people about what to look out for. So what should the main things... OK, so we talked about the love bombing. Well, those ones, if you're aware of the sort of narcissistic behaviour, you know, someone sends you loads of stuff and it's all over you and a bit... only then you think, hang on a minute, what's going on here? But that can also be the start of a healthy relationship. So it's very difficult to work out the difference. Where would you say the line is between that and sort of narcissist and weirdo?
So I don't want to label anyone, but I feel very much that my partner was the narcissist. But I think when it comes to healthy relationships, there's a pacing that is sort of, it gives you time to learn and grow with each other. In abusive relationships, it's quite quick. Within a month, someone might love you. Within 2 weeks, they might say, I love you. They might take you away a month from now to the best. It's very intense, and it doesn't give you a moment to sort of understand what is happening. And I've also noticed they have poor boundaries. The idea of telling an abusive person no, it's a problem. And so I think it's about really garnering the understanding of what feels, because also pay attention to your intuition, because I felt that there was something wrong within the first few weeks, but I didn't listen to myself. Sort of being aware of this feels a bit too much. And if it feels like it's too much, take a second. And if that person doesn't respect the idea of you taking a moment to sort of understand and, you know, take things at a slower pace, that might be an issue.
Could be an issue indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So now I know that there's stuff coming on that people need to be looking out for. You'll be doing some things with ITV. We can't talk about those yet.
Yes.
But you're also talking about this as well. So talk to me about some of the work that you do to educate others on what abusive relationships look like.
Sure. So for the last 4 years, I've been involved in various different charities. I'm a Solace Women's Aid Ambassador in London, and I think they do absolutely amazing work to help women. I just felt like I'd been given a platform as a former Miss England to use it for more than just wearing a crown. I had just left the relationship. I wanted to find myself. We'd passed the pandemic, and I needed to do something outside of me, find a purpose. So for the last few years, I've been working with Solace Women's Aid and just sharing my experience, really talking about what abuse is, because I think a lot of people keep it behind closed doors. It's almost a very taboo, you know, shameful subject to talk about, but many, many women, 1 in 3 women are going to go through some form of abuse in their lifetime. And so if we have the discussion, so me speaking about it, going into schools, talking about healthy relationships, sharing my experience, really garnering the attention that I think it deserves, that's where I think a lot of change will come from then.
Right. So if people want to follow you on your socials, do you have social media where they can go?
Yes, all Rahama Mathamia on everything. Just all the work that I'll be doing, share more about my platform and the amazing work that Solace do.
Oh, well, thank you, Rahama. It's really good to talk to you. I love that. I'm going to have that one.
I'll send you the details.
You think I'm joking? You know I will be looking just like that. But it probably won't look the same as it does on me, that it does on her. But I can give it a go.
No, you look fabulous.
Rahama Mathamia, thank you very much. She's an
Thank
ambassador for Solace. Really fascinating young lady. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Right, it's just gone 5:30. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua on GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, were the Just Stop Oil activists right to receive jail time? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, commentator and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
It's 5:31. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have now been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are currently reporting that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has been transferred to a secure location inside his country with heightened security measures in place. Now, some breaking news in the last few minutes. It's being reported that Rosie Duffield has resigned as a Labour MP. The Times newspaper is reporting that she's blaming Sir Keir Starmer's cruel and unnecessary policies and the freebies row that is engulfing him and his party. Conservative Party leader Rishi Sunak has arrived at the party's conference in Birmingham. He was seen making his way in with his wife, and they were greeted by interim party chairman Richard Fuller. Tory leadership candidate Kemi Badenoch was also seen arriving shortly before. She was greeted by a number of supporters and activists from her campaign as she arrived ahead of the event officially opening tomorrow. And the King and Queen are visiting Holyrood to mark the 25th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament being reconvened. The celebration showcased Scottish music and culture and was attended by local heroes who've been nominated thanks to their contribution to local communities. His Majesty spoke of the success of the devolved Parliament.
From that day until this, through its work over a quarter of a century, this place has not just thrived, but in doing so, has borne witness to the enduring relationship between the Parliament, the Crown and the people of Scotland.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere, we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole, a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome if you just tuned in. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, were the Just Stop Oil activists right to receive jail time? Now, Just Stop Oil have targeted Van Gogh's sunflower paintings again. 3 climate activists who have now been charged targeted the artwork just an hour after 2 other activists were jailed for a similar protest in October 2022. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm focusing on those that have already, the ones who've been in prison, and I'm asking, were the Just Stop Oil activists right to receive jail time? Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also political commentator Jonathan Liss. Lizzie Cundy, they've, I think it was that Phoebe one with the hair when she was on Jacob Rees-Mogg's show, and
that was a great classic.
That was a classic clip, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's too right they should be put in prison. I think it's disgraceful what they have done and how they have actually destroyed people's lives. My friend got caught up when Just Stop Oil were on the motorway. She was trying to get to hospital for her daughter. It was absolute hell and the worry. And you know what? They've stopped people's funerals, stopped people getting to hospital appointments, and now look at them trying to destroy our masterpieces. Do you remember the 2 elderly ladies that had chisel trying to get the Magna Carta. There's no stopping them, and they need to be stopped. And you know what? I've interviewed them before, and they actually don't know what they're protesting about. When you actually you say, "Give me some meat on the bones," they're vegetarian, most of them. They don't know what they're protesting about, and they've all been on on holidays, on planes, on private jets, and it's so hypocritical. But they ruin people's lives. They need to be stopped. Yes, they should be.
You think so?
Jail. Yes.
Now, Jonathan Liss, do you think that those two who have gone to jail, were they right to have been sentenced in that way, in your view? Was that the right action?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
And look, they haven't ruined anyone's life. They weren't protesting on the motorway. That's not what they were sentenced for. They were sentenced for criminal damage, and this is a grossly disproportionate offence. Look, I did not like this protest one bit. I'm not going to say that people should attack works of art. Art is my favourite thing in the world. I love it. I was horrified when it happened, actually, because I thought, let people enjoy art. This is Philistinism. And then I saw a clip that Phoebe did, and I thought it was a really compelling account of a defence of the actions. When she goes through it saying we knew there was not going to be any damage because we knew there was going to be glass on it. We knew that it was ridiculous. We weren't saying that people should be doing this as a matter of course, but we want to get people talking about it, which obviously that did happen, that did work, and that they're prepared to suffer for their cause. And she said that she was prepared to go to prison. I think that it was grossly disproportionate. When you look at how people go to jail for rape for less time and they were just sentenced to prison.
But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't go to jail. I mean, they should sort out the rules.
They didn't even damage the painting, Nana.
Yeah, but that's not the point, though, is it, really? The point is that, actually, I think it's loads of other things as well. It's not just that, it's the whole mindset
But
of it all.
I don't believe a word she says. What if she did destroy that masterpiece? Then you can't go back. You can't say, oh, I knew it had a glass frame and it would be safe. They don't care.
Well, they did care.
They don't care. They don't know. They didn't.
They did a recce the day before.
It had to be then taken. You're telling me those two elderly women weren't going to, when they were going through with a chisel
We're
and
not
that?
talking about them.
No, but I'm telling the whole group that Just Stop Oil. That's why people are so, actually agree with me that they should be put in jail. And you might think, oh no, it doesn't matter. Let them. They've got a great cause. Well, actually, half of them don't know what they're actually protesting about, and they could have very well have harmed that masterpiece, which is unforgivable, Jonathan. I don't know how you can just sit there and stick up for them.
Well, I thought I actually presented quite a nuanced perspective, Lizzie, where I said at first I didn't like the protests and I love art and I was horrified by it.
But you're saying they didn't hurt it.
You're saying, so actually...
No, because you're saying, oh, but they didn't hurt it. But what if they did?
Let Jonathan come back to that. They haven't, though. They didn't.
They didn't, though.
Yeah, but they could
say
have.
all kinds of things.
Yeah,
what if they'd done? What if they sort of taken a sledgehammer to other five? Well, they didn't do that.
Well, there's a chance they could have.
Let's stick with what they actually did.
Let's stick with what they actually did. You can't be in prison for something that you might have thought about.
But that's not why they're in prison. They're in prison for what they actually did.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
let's stick with that.
And
it wasn't a thought.
I think it's completely disproportionate. I think that you can make an argument that if you cause, say, £10,000 of damage to the frame, which is what happened, then that, for example, might be something that you would be asked to pay back. That could be a reasonable punishment, for example. And I don't support people attacking works of art as part of political protest, even though there is a very, very long history of people attacking works of art, such as when the suffragette attacked the Rokeby Venus about over 100 years ago. And that has now become part of the art canon as well. There was an exhibition in the National Gallery, the Tate Gallery, that looked at iconoclasm and attacks on works of art. So it's almost like becomes absorbed into the history of art itself when these new things happen. Again, that's not a defence, and there are all kinds of political causes, and I think there are appropriate means of protest and inappropriate means of protest. They obviously feel desperate about what's happening in climate change, and there needs to be urgent action done.
Yeah, but the cause that they are protesting for is already agreed. So I don't believe in all the. I believe that the climate is changing. I think it will naturally. I think it's negligible how much man has influence on this. But I do support looking after the planet. So most people support the ultimate goal of looking looking after the planet, which is ultimately where they're going with this. So there isn't really an argument or a need for these people.
No, there isn't. And look, I believe in freedom of speech, but with responsibility. This isn't responsible. And you can say, Jonathan, oh, it's just a thought. It isn't just a thought. I think their actions are absolutely disgraceful. I mean, what if they did? And I know you're saying, oh, what if? But you could say if someone is carrying a gun and they didn't use it.
Let's stick with what they actually did there.
Yeah, but
there was a glass covering.
The fact is they should not be doing this. This is one of our finest pieces of art, a masterpiece.
Yeah, but they didn't damage it, Lizzie. They damaged the frame. I'm not defending them. I'm just
I'm saying they should not be doing this in this intent, and all which they have been doing in their campaign is actually infuriating and affecting people's lives.
So Lizzie, please they went to prison?
Yes.
And Jonathan, Liz, you please they went to prison?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, because it's not appropriate. And look,
Why is it not appropriate?
You have people who commit rapes and hate crimes who don't go to prison.
Yeah, that's wrong, but doesn't mean just
it's not going to solve
it's
not going to solve anything.
Yeah, but that's wrong.
I think that we need to we need to have a bigger conversation anyway about why we're imprisoning people and what prison's meant to do. I don't think that it serves anyone to send these people to prison. It just makes them martyrs, if anything.
No, it doesn't make them martyrs. They like to think they're martyrs because you know what they are? They're arrogant. They're narcissists. They think they are doing no wrong. It's affecting people's lives.
What if you were to make them pay for the £10,000 worth of damage that they caused for the frame?
Well, actually, I think they should do that as well, and I think their parents should be brought into. I think their parents have a lot to answer for because some of them are so young. It's like their parents like, oh, do whatever. You know, you saw one of their parents actually saying, oh well, now I'm so upset. They're going to jail. They won't make Freddie's wedding.
It was the graduation.
And I was like, hold on a minute. Do you know how many weddings they've stopped by being in the middle of the motorway? Funerals, getting to the hospital. It's from the same group.
You don't know that. Something could have been booked and then they got in the way. But yeah, I do find it quite ironic that the mum of one of the protesters, I don't think it was that specific one, but she was complaining that, oh, now she had to miss her graduation. Then thinking, well, think about the people on the M25 who miss funerals and everything else. It's amazing these people can't sort of see beyond their own thing. But listen, coming up, my quickfire quiz, I'm going to test my panel on some of the stories that caught their eye this week. Do not go anywhere.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And feelings of stress and anxiety tend to be quite normal for a lot of kids. And if it's normal for the kids, then it affects the parents as well.
Well, it seems that our canine friends could be the cure after new research by the University of Bristol found that dogs are incredibly sensitive to their owners' emotions.
OK, how do we cheat into this? How can your doggy help your family handle stress during this time of the year? Let's go to the Director of Canine Affairs at Guide Dogs UK, Tim Stafford. Tim, we're talking about this as if it's a big revelation, but obviously, you know, a man like yourself, you're well used to this, and you can see when a dog is reacting. What form would that reaction take, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? It's nice when the science kind of confirms what most of us have known for a very long time. Our dogs become members of our family and they come very, very close to us. So it's no surprise that anything that goes on in the family is going to be detected and picked up by the dog. That can be changes in behaviours. It can certainly be the dogs watching our behaviours and starting to mirror those behaviours. But what this research says is that the dogs can actually smell our emotions. It's not just that they're responding to our behaviour changes, they're responding to our physiological changes as well, because we smell differently when we start to get anxious. So at this time, there's lots of changes in a lot of families' lives. Kids are going back to school, young people are going to university, parents are having to deal with all of the emotions attached to that. So it's no surprise that our dogs start to detect that too.
GB News, The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, welcome. Up next, it's the Saturday Fire, but right now it's time for my quickfire quiz, the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories that are hitting the headlines right now. Joining me, broadcast columnist Lizzie Cundy. Your buzzer, please, Lizzie. And also political commentator Jonathan List. Your buzzer, please. Lovely. And please play along at home. Right, just to give you the rules, Jonathan, do not buzz in until I've finished a question. Otherwise, you just be disqualified. I also have an ejector button here. Right, question one. An ultra-rare experimental 25p coin sold at auction this week, but what was the date on the coin? Was it A, 1925, or was it B, 1981, or was it C, 1985? Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going for A, 1925.
Press your buzzer before you answer. Jonathan List.
1985.
OK, you're saying C, 1985. Let's have a look. The answer is 1981, which, of course, was B. So neither of them got it right. Now, the coin is thought to have been made by the Royal Mint craftsman before the 20p denomination was released into circulation, and it sold for £1,700.
Oh, I'm going in my old piggy bank.
Let's see what you've got. You're not that old, Lizzie. You weren't alive, or maybe you were, when that coin was made.
If only.
I love
Right. Question two. Sir Keir Starmer, during his first Labour Party conference speech, made a huge blunder whilst discussing the conflict between Israel and Iran. But what did he say? Oh, Lizzie Cundy.
Sausages. The hostages. Release sausages.
Release the sausages.
Right, let's find out. Have a listen.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages. The hostages.
No points.
So many times you think I know exactly what it was by now.
You know what? Now Heinz Baked Beans are doing these tins with him on for sausages.
Oh, goodness. I mean, look, it's a very serious situation, so we don't really like to laugh at the actual issue itself, but Keir Starmer, that was a big, big banger of a blunder. Right, true or false? Question three. A woman from Bournemouth was fined £500 for fly tipping after leaving a cabinet outside her home for passers-by to take. Jonathan List.
True.
It's true.
It is true.
OK, let's see if we're all right. It is true, guess. The woman left the medium-sized IKEA cabinet, which had stored children's toys in her son's room, and it's currently in dispute with the local council.
Ooh.
Right, question four. I think this one is closest answer wins. All right, sad news yesterday as Dame Maggie Smith, star of the Harry Potter films and Downton Abbey, died at the age of 89. But how many films and TV shows did she star in? Lizzie Cundy?
It's a guess, 44?
44, Jonathan List.
I'd say 79.
79. Great, it's quite a few each year. Let's have a look if you're right.
Oh!
It's 60. So actually, Jonathan List wins by 1 point. Oh, hang on. What did you say?
44.
Oh, 44. No, I thought you said 40.
She wins.
You do win, Lizzie, sorry.
Thank you very much. I thought it was wrong.
If it was over 60, wait, over 60, that might be... That might take it close to my answer.
Yeah, right, might do, but it didn't, though, did it? So you haven't won that one. Right, so...
And what a fine, amazing actress. Oh, her comic
Absolute
genius.
icon.
Well, I can't wait to see... It's 2-1 to Lizzie so far. I can't wait to hear the results of our poll as well, to find out what people are thinking. But the final question, 60... hang on. OK, so this is... oh, yes, sorry. She actually performed 60 films in the 60 films, the television series in her career, notably Harry Potter and Downton Abbey. Right, final question, question 5. Multiple choice. What will I'm a Celebrity contestants be able to do this year as they have not been able to do before? Lizzie Cundy.
Chat to their loved ones at home, I guess.
Jonathan, especially buzzer, you've got an answer.
I don't have an answer.
Come on.
send messages back home. I'd say the same thing.
No, they'll be allowed to take Ozempic injections. Which kind of defeats the point of the whole show. The whole show is to get food for the camp. Why would you won't be hungry? They won't be hungry, Lizzie.
That's so silly. And you lose weight anyway you're in the jungle. I've had so many friends in it and they come back like a little stick. Oh dear, that's silly. That doesn't make sense.
Lizzie, can I just say there, unfortunately, I thought you were going to get that right, but yes, celebrity stars will be allowed to take the controversial Ozempic injections in camp. The diabetes jab, which is also used for off-label for weight loss, will be given off-camera to any celeb with a prescription on the show. Contestants have found the eating challenge is hard to swallow for 24 years, but they would be a bit silly. What's the point of it?
That's the point.
I don't think they've got that right.
I'm going to find out, because my son's actually working on the show out in Australia, so I'm going to find that out.
All right, Lizzie, well, you are the victor for today's quiz. Well done. Commiserations, Jonathan. Right, well, listen, for today's show, I've been asking, do you back Israel? And according to our Twitter poll, 86% of you say yes, 14% of you say no.
Wow.
I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. That's not you, Lizzie. You're not Lizzie. Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Jonathan Liss for joining me. And as a very huge thank you to you for your company. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Saturday 5 is next. Do not go anywhere. See you tomorrow.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got showers still persisting in the northwest today, sunnier spells elsewhere before turning more unsettled from the west on Sunday. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we've got a ridge of higher pressure extending across the UK. We do have this frontal system that's just going to bring a focus for some showers through the rest of the afternoon. So cloudy conditions across Scotland with outbreaks of rain pushing through, especially across Orkney. Elsewhere we'll see a few showers across northwestern parts of England, but on the whole a largely dry night to come with some clear spells as well. It's not going to be as chilly as last night, but we could still see a touch of frost, especially in the countryside. But as we start Sunday morning, we've still got cloud and rain persisting across Orkney through the early start of the day. But further across central parts, a chilly start across Scotland, perhaps with a touch of frost, but some sunshine as well. Across Northern Ireland, we're already seeing the start of that low pressure system, bringing increasing amounts of cloud here. But further across eastern parts of England, that's where we'll hold on to some bright weather to start the day, but it will turn increasingly cloudy as the day progresses. And that's all to do with an area of low pressure moving in from the west. So we have got a Met Office wind warning in force, giving some strong winds, especially across the southwestern parts of England and into Wales, 50, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And that's also going to bring in some increasing amounts of cloud and rain. Further towards the east, though, holding on to a drier day with some bright or hazy sunshine. But as the evening progresses, that low pressure system will continue to push its way across much of England and Wales, bringing increasing amounts of cloud and rain. And we've got a wind warning and a rain warning in force as well. So unsettled on Monday, but turning a little bit drier on Tuesday and Wednesday. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We love.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Saturday Five, my friends. It's time for all of us, isn't it? I'm Darren Grimes, along with Chloe Dobbs, Dr. Renee Hunterkamp, Andy Williams and Will Kingston. Tonight on the show...
The suicidal march to net zero continues.
Forcibly vaccinating anyone is a crime.
Socialist sleaze shown right up. I'm loving it.
Why can't the BBC call a spade a spade? A terrorist is a terrorist.
Labour has a plan to fix a prisons crisis created by the Tories.
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday Five. A very warm welcome to the Saturday Five with me, Darren Grimes. This is the only show where we don't just poke the woke, we roast them on a spit and serve them with a side of common sense. And I have to say, folks, there's something rather poetic about watching the same mob that brought down Boris Johnson over a slice of birthday cake that he says didn't even exist unravel faster than one of Keir Starmer's sausages. Speeches. It turns out that those champagne socialists aren't just bad at policies, they're also quite good at pretending to have morals, which is why one of their MPs just tonight has ditched the sleazy socialist cabal. And I told you last week that I would be sending my drinks bill from Reform Party conference along to Labour's squillionaire Lord Ali. I'm afraid to no avail. I sadly go through one more week without my own sugar daddy, unlike Sir Keir and Lady Starmer. Joining us this week, we've got the queen of no-nonsense herself, Dr. Renee, a GP who somehow finds time to run rings around health myths peddled by the left. And if you thought common sense was endangered, well, fear not, because consultant Andy Williams is here to prescribe a healthy dose of woke. Next up, fresh-faced political commentator Chloe Dobbs is in the hot seat. Now, Chloe's so sharp she makes Starmer look like a blunt instrument. And finally, the podcaster who's taken common sense to new heights, Will Kingston from the Specky. Honestly, he's got more wisdom in one podcast than you'll find in an entire Labour Party front bench. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a belter of a ride. You know the drill now. Each host outlines their argument about a chosen topic, then we'll all pile in and the fire starts to fly. Send in your views as well. Post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Don't forget, ask the five. Get your questions in. No topic is off limits. But my friends, before we start tearing each other apart like Rosie Duffield with the Labour Party, it's your Saturday Night News with Sophia Wensler.
Darren, thank you. Good evening. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines just after 6 o'clock. Terrorist group Hezbollah has confirmed their leader has been killed in airstrikes in southern Lebanon. In a tweet this morning, the IDF say Hassan Nasrallah will no longer be able to terrorise the world. The Lebanese Health Ministry is reporting that at least 6 people have now been killed and 91 wounded in the attack in central Beirut. On your screens now are live pictures of where that missile attack happened. Soldiers and aid workers have been taking part in rescue operations, looking for survivors and victims in the rubble. Reuters news agency are